No. It's no problem. It's just a setting.
Yeah, these look really cool. You should, whenever you do a video on these, print out one page that's uncolored just to kind of like show off the,
right.
Show off the blue line to
let me
explain.
Let me tell them real quick what I was saying. Yeah, so like I was talking to Jimmy, and I want to do a video on blue line. The blue line process is something that we talk about a whole lot, and I wanted to put it into play. So I worked on a strip this past week where I colored the blue lines and finished it, and it turned out decent enough. Like, I learned a lot, but we should do a video showing off the blue line process and like the satisfaction of coloring with markers, color pencil to achieve your colors, and then like laying that black line on top, pulling everything together. Anyhow, just wanted to show Jim this week's progress. But we got done with the shoot interview earlier today that I think you guys are gonna dig. That's gonna be Jimmy's big edit job for the week. But thank you guys so much for joining us.
Fun week this week of comics.
Yes, it's always a fun week of comics, and you know
some are more fun than others.
Jimmy,
sometimes things don't work the way you remember them.
Jimmy, you don't. I don't think you understand the amount of fun we're going to be having with some things, man. Because I got a game to play.
Oh boy,
I got a game for us to play with this one in specific. How's it look? Looks good.
Yes.
A lot of color comics this week.
Yeah, I was trying to figure out whatever the theme is this week, and it's random, but it's
random is good
stuff.
Can you move your box over a little bit more? I want to move the mic over a little more, get a little bit more comfortable and on a weird angle. I like the idea of, I'm trying to think of like a kind of a system, and I like that we went through 11 rockets and a mad, and like if I could think of like two more like good ones. So it's like every month I'll pull 11 rockets, pull a mad, and then like two other like, and that's like the solid good stuff of my choices, and then the stuff that gooses
cleansers.
The stuff that gooses our algorithm would be like another one for the week, and then just a solid tongue-in-cheek other kind of comic or some shit, or maybe like a wild card vid will be the thing.
We should have some monthly regulars. The wizard. There should be a wizard each month.
Yeah.
We should probably start adding the comics journal.
Yeah.
Each month.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, we should start planning this stuff, Ed.
I know. After 4 years, it's going to be our 4th anniversary of our first episode going live November 5th.
Yeah, reminder of everybody too. Come see us in Baltimore, and maybe that's where we'll make some of these plans, Ed.
Yeah.
A little bit of a car ride there and back.
Yes, sir. We gonna come back Sunday night?
Mm-hmm.
Late? Great. Yeah, we tear down fast, dude. We're like a pit crew. We really, really are, man. It's very...
Hey,
a couple years, right?
It takes a long time to load in. It takes no time to load out as long as everybody shows up.
That's goddamn right.
Show up with your wallets.
Dude, I got... In the other room, man, I'll show you. I put together... I put frames around my Mondo prints.
I saw the picture look really good.
And it's big...
It's like a studio author pick.
Right. Six of those frames come in a carton, so I have the 2 cartons, and
the carton's the way to go.
Yeah, like if you want, I could put them in your car, and you could put your loose ones like in between when we start loading. Good. So okay, if you think that's the plan, like I'll help load that into your car on the way out today. Listen, man, we wet our whistle with a 1-hour talk already with a very cool shoot interview. I guess I'm ready if you are, Jim.
Yeah. You want all this?
Yeah. Cool. Welcome to Cartoonist Kayfabe. My name is Ed Piskor.
I'm Jim Rugg.
Today we're going to be looking at the second appearance of Deadpool, Rob Liefeld's X-Force issue number 2. But first, these videos are brought to you by the comic books that we make in stores right now. Jimmy has Hulk Grand Design Monster Madness, where he's creating a continuity amongst 50 years worth of Hulk comics. Going to get the Grand Design treatment in early 2023. And Street Angel Deadliest Girl Alive trade paperback is back in stores as we speak, man, back in print. Make sure you get your hands on that sucker. I have Red Room: The Antisocial Network and Red Room: Trigger Warnings out in the wild. Murder on the Dark Web for Fun and Profit is the name of the game. Jimmy, can you lock us in real quick? Is the name of the game. And each of these books completely self-contained. And I'm going to be at the Tokyo Comic Con at the last weekend of November, sharing a table with Uncle Jeff Darrow. Come out, see us, say hi if you're in that area. Without further ado, let's jump into things. Jimmy, X-Force number 2. You know, off the bat, man, I think we fucked up because, well, you know what? I got a pen right here. And I think the tracing paper is down below you because I think we're going to have... I think we're going to have us a grand old time with this issue here, Jim. Near and dear to my heart, man. Second appearance of Deadpool, like I said. And as I was reading this, people were coming by, taking a look at this comic, and were like, how long is that arm? Where is that guy's leg? And I'm like, you don't even know the half of it, because when you crack open the page...
I got one other note on the cover. I think this is all reused art. Because I was looking at this cover coming in, and I was like, oh, I kind of like that design. You know, put a big X on it. It's some graphic symbol. Looks good from a distance. Looks good small. But whenever you look closer, the artwork inside here, I think, is all found artwork. I
think you are right and onto something. I certainly recognize this image back there in this Cable and Domino corresponds with that. So cool that you said that, because I was imagining Rob Liefeld like using surprints and things, and I don't see it. I can't imagine it. So that makes
also you get a good look at the this was the part that broke down Rob Liefeld artwork for me, was trying to figure out how these hatched eyes work.
Absolutely, man. And it's never more abstract than in this issue. One of the things I do have to show off with this is that, like, first off, Jimmy, can you corroborate? Just hold this comic in your hand, man. How well read is that?
It's well read. It's well read. This is what happens with old comics, definitely. Yeah, well done. Hey, one more note before we dive in. Jim Lee on the Punisher video game art. Not the only Jim Lee Punisher video game art.
It's true.
I don't know how big that is for him career-wise, but I mean, like, these video game art ads were ubiquitous.
Straight up.
You know, like, they would be in a lot more comics than the Jim Lee art, you know, drawn comic.
Yep.
And I don't know if people are seeing it or not, but I always thought the ads looked really cool for these. There's at least one other pose that I remember from these ads.
Yeah.
And they looked good, and it was Jim Lee. So kind of cool, you know, to see Jim Lee advertising art and connected to video games. When he goes to Wildstorm, the video games are a big part of Wildstorm. And I remember when DC picks up Wildstorm and they're doing video game comics, everything I read said those video game comics were the best-selling comics of the year.
Sure.
But it was outside the direct market. Mm-hmm. So when they would post best-selling books of the year, they were just average books in the direct market. But overall, like, they were top-selling comic books those years.
They would be at Babbage's. They would be at Suncoast Video. I remember seeing it. And that other pose that you're mentioning about the Jim Lee Punisher, that would be on the arcade cabinets too. So you're seeing Jim Lee artwork just going to the arcade. Some of his X-Men art, I don't quite in my mind's eye, I can't exactly remember who drew the cabinet art that was on the X-Men joint. But looking at this color also, there's no doubt that that's Paul Mounts doing the color on that, man, with the airbrush and the sort of extra filigree that I associate with him. But check this shit out, Jimmy. Page 1 and 2. I have salvaged from a comic that I drew when I was a kid, man, where I was like stealing the beats from Rob Liefeld. I think I remember reading somewhere that he cribbed some George Perez comic for the pacing of X-Force #1.
Right.
And it wasn't a pejorative. It wasn't a diss, really. It was just like a fact of the matter whenever it was discussed. So I'm like, okay, well, that's how you do it, because I just want to be a penciler. So it's like this is my own character. I call him Swift Spear. And you got your dude up on the roof. Well, we know he's on the roof, but you got your guy looking down. So I have a little of that. You see what he's looking at and where he is in relation to everything, man. So look at that water texture right there, Jimmy. We have our dude looking down at some dudes at the docks. You know, the standard Canon Films intro. You got your bad guy with the silhouetted figure in the background on top of one of those warehouses, and then the pounce.
It's interesting that you're not copying layouts exactly.
Right, it's like story beats.
Yeah. Or I guess it would be layouts, and then you're doing the finished art as like the interpretation.
Right, like, oh man, I could do this better.
By the way, a lot of words, a lot more words than I remembered. When I was going through like what I'm reading this week, I was like, oh, this is a quickie read. Very few words. Fabian earning his money on this one.
Yeah, trying to for sure, man. One of the other odd pieces, beyond just the hatched eyes, with the Venetian blind shading and stuff, it's the weird like double eyebrow thing that I start drawing for a year or two there, because it just kind of like looks cool. I'm imagining that that's supposed to be shading, but it really looks like hair coming down.
Yeah, I feel like I could pull out. We could already start with our tracing paper, because I think what you have, the bottom line's your eye socket, makes sense, and the top one is your pronounced brow. But on a regular person, the top one it's like wider.
Yeah.
But the way it's drawn here, it's just a little bit. Almost it could be Road Warrior face paint.
Right. The other piece, though, is in the color. It doesn't really help things, because when you talk about face paint, that dark purple, everybody has a shiner. Everybody's got black eyes. Now, let's look at the credits box real quick, man. Rob Liefeld, Ideas and Pictures. We interviewed him, and he said, nobody touches my faces on my guys, whatever. There are absolutely a couple Eric Larson inked pages in here.
Oh, interesting.
I think they're gonna, now that you know that, they're gonna stick out like a sore thumb once we get there. And I think those faces are also inked by Larson. A lot of Larson lines on that stuff.
How about this for getting in a fight with your colorist? The ink lines are going this way. The color lines are going this way.
Right.
So about a 90-degree discrepancy there. There's a couple of these things too, and I was trying to figure out, like, is this digital coloring? Is this early days? Like, what's going on here? Is it maybe digital color separations? Because there's another instance where we're going to see the inside of letters that aren't, I don't know,
trapped
selected
whatever,
or something, that they're filled in like that. And that feels like something that comes out of digital.
Can I do my first trace of paper piece, though?
Knock yourself out.
Because this is the one that I remember trying to wrap my head around when I was a little dude.
Yeah, and let me vamp for a minute on the content here. I was reading these monthly and loving them, and it's like you've got a new book here in X-Force, and our first several pages are going to be with virtually new characters. Deadpool, I guess we saw at the end of New Mutants, but haven't seen much of. Kane, I think this is his introduction.
Right.
So that was part of the appeal for me when I was reading this stuff, is it was like new.
Yes.
Almost like wrestling, they talk about, you got it, people love the new.
Now, here's the thing, man. Like, I remember staring at this panel so much. And up until this reading, because, like, when you read critically, like, for something that you're going to talk about, you just kind of are paying a little bit more of attention.
It helps, too, being 30 years later.
That's true. But even for a little while, I had pause while I was, like, looking at this thing.
I love seeing the figures broke down in simple shapes like that.
Yeah, sure. So, what my issue was, like, I thought for 30 years, like, I thought that this was Kane's whole leg.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, that looks real wonked. Like, that just bent so odd. But it's not. Like, that's Deadpool's leg. It just, like, it's one of those tangents whenever you have that kind of cross-section at, like, a knee, where you... Just something to keep in mind when you're putting your own comics together, because this is completely the Kane pose. His knees bent, you don't see the bottom of his feet.
Totally.
And the extension of that leg is just far out. Page after page of just nonstop fighting, man. Rob Liefeld knew what I wanted to look at when I was about 11, 12 years old. Man.
You and like 900,000 other readers.
Look at these wild colors that you just don't see them that often in comics. Like, it's still communicating that nighttime stuff, but the problem is, like, leaving the white on the metal, it abuses that. It makes it feel like that's just like his natural color, and it's so dark. When you don't get the Venetian blind shading under the eyes, it's that classic period of the squinty kind of sketched eyes that don't have lines that touch. You see the absolute kind of Art Adams influence in how he builds those faces. Definitely.
I also think in the color here, you're seeing black mixed in with some of the colors. Like the shadow and the red here, I think is adding black to it. It's a tint. I think even same with like hair, because if you look at the hair, It's so dark.
Yeah.
It's almost weirdly darker than the black ink line.
Yeah, and if you look really, really close, like with the separations, it doesn't look like it's cut out by the Connecticut house of matronly old ladies. Like, you don't see the Ben-Day dots. The flow is way smoother. So they definitely are upgrading their systems, to say the least. Second issue of X-Force, and I believe the second Severed Hand, or did that Severed Hand happen in New Mutants 100?
Yeah, I can't remember the first Severed Hand. This may be the first Severed Hand.
There's definitely a Severed Hand in that gets cut off by one of the Mutant Liberation Front dudes. Maybe somebody in the comments exactly remembers, but power pose, Kane over top, dude. I had this action figure, man, and the hands come off and everything. Everybody a eunuch with this like double lighting on the cod piece.
Double. There's about 5 lighting areas on there. One thing I love, and there's a couple examples, the weird ink textures.
Yes.
So behind him, I don't know if that's brush or like a wider marker or something like that, but I like seeing that kind of stuff, and we'll see it again later on with some tree trunks textures. But I love it. We've said it every time we look at Rob Liefeld artwork. Always let me see Rob Liefeld inking his own pencils.
Yeah.
And, this is probably some of the prime examples of that stuff.
Totally, man. Another...
And also let me see whoever inking their own pencils. Not just Rob, but that's your drawing part. I want to see that.
Another weird, wild eye thing that Rob would do is just have like this little white tint, this little white highlight inside of that eye socket. And not only did I copy this, but a whole lot of people copied that. You would see a lot of the Extreme Studios stable would do a little version of that, early Chap Yap and such.
Yeah, and I often think, like, we look at this stuff and people, a lot of people are critical of Rob Liefeld art. The problem, I think, because you can see how these eyes, we talk about that's an eye socket, it's just a little stylized or whatever. The problem occurs whenever you go, I'm going to learn how to draw eyes from this comic.
Sure,
it's the next generation where it really becomes abused. Like, at this point, I feel like, okay, Rob knows how an eye's built, and it's, there's some creative liberty here. It's the following, it's the learning from comics is where we go wrong.
Yes.
And man, I have sketchbooks of that wrongness.
Totally, man. The proportions, like, we really have that super tiny upper body and those extremely long legs, man. But it's so attractive.
They just look like fashion drawings.
It does, but it's Aeon Flux. Like, with these kind of legs, you just want to see them in motion and doing things.
You know what? Aeon Flux is a great one. I wish I would have thought of it. And I think you see it in the fight. In the opening fight where there's like legs and limbs flailing everywhere. Totally. Like, you get much more of that energy.
Here goes some of your screen door effect. Like, Rob just putting manic lines down, just not allowing for there to be just white behind his panels.
Here's again, you're going off the rails now when we start coloring the checkerboard in.
Yeah.
I think that's a gradient, maybe, not a checkerboard.
Who is this color? Is this Brian Murray?
No, it isn't. I didn't recognize them. Do you know that name?
Cotta. Yeah, we've looked at some comics.
It's pretty wild coloring overall.
But hey, man, we're good. We're setting a new mood. We got a new scene, new palette. We got the Adirondacks behind us, man. And X-Force is about to do some practice. I feel like in issue 1 they just did some practice. It's kind of the same, I think. This is Cable laying things down. Listen, we're practicing, but don't you dare think that I think of you guys as students. This ain't the danger room. We're playing for keeps. We're way tougher. Rob getting those money shots in there. Look at that spread, dude. A full body Cable, full body Ferrell. I mean, I drew this Ferrell.
Yes.
And that's what I would do. I said it before in some of the McFarlane Artist Edition thing, where I was buying comics and like looking for the most full bodies because I was in that copy phase whenever you start deciding to become a cartoonist. When Cannonball has his gimmicks on, like those eyes.
If you tracing papered those eyes, you've got about 3 eyes in between those two.
Yeah. Trying to give Boom Boom some agency, some toughness, man. And Ferrell, she's the hothead, and she's a badass, but Boom Boom's gonna, subdue her in some way.
That's all right. These are the thicker lines that I was referring to earlier, and those feel full on like a chisel tip marker to me.
Yeah. Yeah, this is also that thing where Rob probably started blowing up roughs, and we'll get these hatchings that are so thick and almost like the page is blown up in a way.
They will refer to Feral as more animal than human later on in this, and I think that Kayfabe does a good job of that with her captions, where like she's talking about them as prey,
Right,
and stuff.
Yeah, good lettering for her dialogue. Also, one of those instances where a character has unique speech balloons.
It's a good showing for her because she's not a character. If you listed the X-Force characters, she might be my least that I'm interested in, and yet here we get to see her go against the team and do pretty well.
She's tough design. Like the second season of X-Men toys was like the Rob Liefeld season. That's where you get your Cables and your X-Forces and stuff. I don't think they ever made her a toy, but almost everybody else in here, Domino. I don't know if there was a Boom Boom, but
yeah, Boom Boom would be the other one that in my world is fighting for least interesting character on the team.
Totally. I feel like now we're going to start seeing some different inks on display, like some corners being cut, like Rob using those markers that you leave that tip down on the paper for a microsecond too long, you get a little dot of bleed.
Yeah, and we've talked about that as being something I would even emulate.
Sure.
I love this face. It looks like I remember reading about Mobius and how the pen tips would wear and then his lines would get heavier.
Yeah.
And it feels like that for the hatching of that face. So
Totally.
if you're going savage, to me those lines work real well. They feel more inked.
It's definitely like a piece like this in Understanding Comics whenever Scott McCloud is kind of breaking down the vibe of the style and talking about like the youthful energy.
Shatterstar, fighting is what you do, killing is what I am.
Shakespeare said that once.
Yeah, I think so.
We're starting to get into those like wild pieces, man. We're like, let's put 5 characters in a super tiny panel. Something about this panel like always struck me. It's a very like melodramatic kind of spit take or something.
Yeah, there are parts in this that are it feels like editors are keeping certain R-rated violence from being too explicit.
Right, like maybe this is a paste up, like blown up.
That's one, and then this is one, because I think what's happening here is Cable is shooting Feral, like twice with like tranquilizers or something. No discharge from the gun. There's no apparent play. This is the magic bullet of comics.
You're right. You're right, because I feel like Rob doesn't even draw, like he puts those lines on the arm, so that might even be some, what do you call it, man? Some remeterators.
Yeah, definitely. Because it just doesn't add up. Like we're missing something in that panel, and I think that's maybe a correction of like, we can't have somebody shooting, good guys shooting good guys point blank.
More of this wild color.
The color's very strange in a few of these places.
See, we're building toward the Brian Murray issue.
Yes. And again, I kind of like that.
Sure.
It's so bizarre.
Yeah, it's its own thing. You know, like this super saturated green with these like dark purple. Shatterstar's visor has like weird browns and stuff on it. Now flip that page, man, and tell me who inked this page. Look at that.
I'm with you.
Look at that.
That's
down
100%.
there.
That looks totally like Eric Larson.
Yeah, and I think both of these pages. Pretty cool.
This even looks like the Eric Larson from the Spider-Man era that follows McFarlane. So it would have been like a few, maybe months after this issue that Larson's doing Spider-Man and using these kinds of screen tones on it.
Yeah. Yeah, and this is.
I think you're completely right.
Yeah, this is inked by Larson too. Like when he has those like 3-point perspectives.
I agree with you.
I mean, both of these whole pages.
Wonder where this is done. You know what? I like this team. Like if Larson was the regular inker on Liefeld this era, I'd have been on board. I think.
Yeah. He's
a little bit of cartoon and a little bit more solid forms. I think is what he's bringing to this.
It's true. I think he will be a credited inker in a future issue.
It's really interesting.
And I think that he's on this one too, but it's a little less obvious to me. There's a little less to work with.
It's consistent. I think you're right, and I think it's all him. You see that screen tone again that I mentioned, which we don't see elsewhere. Some of the Kirby Crackle stuff. I think you're right.
This is very much an Art Adams built kind of face structure thing.
Yeah, definitely.
With the sort of shadow on the receding teeth like that. The way those eyes are built in the two annuals, the New Mutants annual and the X-Men annual, where they go to Asgard. You see a lot of that.
Do you think the L boys are responsible for that boom lettering?
That looks workmanish almost, doesn't it? Like, and we know what
It looks very Larson line-ish.
Larson, yeah, like what Larson thinks of that kind of thing. So I think you're onto something with that. And then we're back to Rob, because he had that 2-page.
Oh, this is a money page.
That he didn't want to, he ain't going to cut nobody else in.
Juggernaut looks so good here.
Yes.
I was pretty excited to turn the page and see this one, because I feel like Juggernaut's a character over the years that has always looks cool. Like, people just bring their A game to him. He's huge. He's basically a walking tank, and it's in evidence here. At least that goes back 30 years.
Absolutely, man. And these big hatches, right? Like Rob is totally copying the lines that were down on his Post-it note roughs that were blown up with no added fuss or muss.
Couple more of the let's make it a checkerboard. What's the impulse there?
Yeah, I don't get that at all.
That's bizarre.
And of course, the next issue is the Twin Tower Takeover, which we do have a video of. I'm going to put links in the description below where you can check out the X-Force 1 video, maybe the New Mutants 100, and certainly the McFarlane-Liefeld collaboration with the Twin Tower Takeover. Todd's last issue of Spider-Man coinciding with issue number 3 of X-Force. But these are the comics during the formative years where little Eddie P is like, you know what? I might have a shot. I might grow up and make some comics, because this feels attainable.
It's so abstract. If you look at the line art of Black Tom, like from the back there,
Yeah.
very abstract the way that character's put together.
It's true, man. Yeah. It's there's a lot of floaty things happening there. It's another one of those instances where we could pull out the trace and lay down some of that, man, because you got your neck here, got the arm. There's like this piece right here, a little long, but he's trying to sell you on it because he wants the head and the neck to come up beyond the neck collar. So, Jimmy, second appearance of Deadpool, but here's the game we're going to play. Before Rob Liefeld goes to Image Comics, how much Deadpool did he put out into the Marvel Universe? 22 pages an issue. I don't think he shows up in another Rob X-Force. I could be wrong, but I don't think he shows up again. He definitely shows up in like Greg Capullo, Mark Pasella, all that stuff. So with these 2 issues, man, 22 issues apiece. How many pages would Deadpool, you think, man?
10.
I was gonna say 15. So let's play a game real fast, dude.
All right, I'll count issue 2.
All right, man. We're going. Oh man, Deadpool's pretty deep in here.
Yeah, there's more Deadpool in here than I thought too.
No, he doesn't start off until page 18. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and he gets dispatched in 6 pages.
I got 8 over here. So we got 14 pages worth of Deadpool in these first 2 appearances. There's certain stuff that's in here that is consistent with him, though. Kane talks about how he never shuts up.
Right.
He's trying to suck him into this back and forth dialogue, to distract him and make him lose focus. So, the Merc with the mouth stuff is kind of here. And I don't know what else there is. I guess it's the Weapon X stuff that he recovers or, can't be killed or whatever.
Right. And you know what? It's actually 15 pages.
Ah, right, yes.
I didn't count ahead of time. I was just a guess. But 15 pages before Uncle Rob is heading to Image Comics.
It's one of those, it's one of the great stories in comics history. Like, I was watching Welcome to Wrexham, and it's Ryan Reynolds buying a soccer team.
Yeah.
In the credits is Deadpool. Like, in the credits of this show, every episode you're going to see Deadpool in this show that seems to have nothing to do with Deadpool, except Deadpool's everywhere.
Yes. Yeah,
bizarre.
Fantastic. And I think Uncle Rob has participation in that.
Hey, I hope he does. I wish that deal was the deal that every creator had. Think of the different attitude everybody would have towards Marvel Comics if everybody who contributed a character got a tiny, what's the cut, 1%?
Right.
Think of how much different that Marvel universe would look right now if people were encouraged of I could create the next Deadpool.
Right.
You would have creators lined up around the block at Marvel being like, I've got all these new characters. Who do you want to publish? Who do you guys want to take control of?
Yeah, which is what Rob was doing.
But instead, they went, no, that's too good of a deal. Can't give that to anybody else.
Right.
And now you've got people going, let's, just work with just the characters that already exist.
When you take a look at those Marvel Universe or whatever, you know, where it's like the poses, where it's the 3-hole punch things where it's like the front, side, back. When you go through all of those, and they would always make an effort, you know, they would come shrink wrapped loose leaf paper that you get to put in your 3-ring binder. They would always make an effort to give you like 1 or 2 A-listers per one of those, because there's so many fucking DCK listers. You always could tell what the Kirby's are. Like, it's just natural. Yeah. Like, there's just such a intelligence to the design in terms of color and everything, and you can see like what all the off-brand bullshit, because it's uninspired, and the creators, like, they know what happened to Kirby, so they're not like really putting forth the biggest effort to come up with something amazing. They're just like, whatever, because, you know, it is what it is. But yeah, Deadpool, second appearance, X-Force #2, super fun. Good to go, Jim?
Yes.
Kayfabers, like, follow, subscribe to the YouTube channel, hit the bell. We'll notify you when new vids are available. Jimmy, tell the people what's out there, man.
Hulk Grand Design Monster Madness, 2 40-page issues retelling the 60-year history of the Incredible Hulk are in comic shops now, and coming in early 2023 is the treasury-size collection of Hulk Grand Design, about 40 extra pages, all oversized, remastered. Pre-order that now. Let your comic shop know that you want a copy so Marvel knows how many to print. Street Angel, Deadliest Girl Alive is now back in comic shops after over a year out of print. I saw the new editions this weekend. I'm thrilled with them. If you missed Street Angel, pick it up. 8 complete full-color stories. You can also join me on patreon.com/JimRug, where you can see a lot more of my work and download out-of-print PDFs of zines and mini-comics there.
Going to be visiting Tokyo Comic-Con at the end of November. If you are in that region, stop through, swing by, say hi. Red Room, The Antisocial Network, and Red Room Trigger Warnings are the current books that I have out on the stands. Murder on the Dark Web for Fun and Profit is the name of the game. Each of these books completely self-contained. Each contains 4 issues, plus 70 pages or so of story on top. 70 pages or so of extra material that is not included in the regular issues. And I'm serializing new Red Room stuff on my Patreon, patreon.com/edpiscore, $3 for the archive there. And you'll be able to get to all of these links in my link tree in the description below this video. Jimmy, what else do we have out in the wild?
Subscribe to the Cartoonist Kayfabe newsletter at the links below this video. You can also find Cartoonist Kayfabe t-shirts and merchandise at the links below this video.
It's another great way to support the Cartoonist Kayfabe channel. Given those marching orders, we'll be on our way.
Read more comics. I've never thought about it before, but I'm convinced now, like, that should be the Marvel DC policy. Like, you get your 1% of the character you create.
Yeah.
I think it would really juice, you know, over the years at least. Think of the accumulation of that. Because there's a sweet period where, you know, those guys had a good contract, and it's just like a blip in the history of the company.
Yeah, like I'm ruling with you, but like I don't know this. Like I'm just completely going by your word, because I didn't read about it, and I just don't know. So I'm ruling with you, because like I always thought it was that deal. You know, like I always thought that that's the deal. But I don't know. Like I'm rolling with you.
Yeah. I'm trying to think. Like, is Ed Brubaker the creator of Winter Soldier? Like, weigh in on it here. You know, it's. I think it was a short window where that contract was what it was.
Yeah. You know what? I'll save the black and white for a different background. Let's go stunting.
Hold mine up and be embarrassed. This may provide some interesting comparisons. I'm not sure how these are colored.
Yeah, I think it's probably pretty close. Man.
Yeah, I had no complaints about the coloring in here, so...
Yeah, which is evidence of that, right? Yeah, I think it's the same. Marie Severin. And I'm gonna create a playlist for this, man, because I like, to me, that it's like we got to do the first 23, you know, like at the barest minimum.
Yes.
Good one you are, Jimmy.
Ready?
Yes, sir. Welcome to Cartoonist Kayfabe. My name is Ed Piskor.
I'm Jim Rugg.
Mad number 2 is going to be the topic of discussion today, but first, our videos are brought to you by the comic books that we make. I'm going to be in Tokyo Comic Con at the end of November, last weekend there, sharing a table with Jeff Darrow. Swing through if you're in that region. But on the stands right now today, I have Red Room, The Antisocial Network, Red Room Trigger Warnings, Murder on the Dark Web for Fun and Profit is the name of the game in Red Room Comics. Each of these books completely self-contained, 4 stories in each with about 70 pages of extra material. Jimmy has Hulk Grand Design Monster and Madness in issue form on the stands right now. It's going to be getting a Treasury Edition format in early 2023, and he has a new edition of Street Angel Deadliest Girl Alive trade paperback from Image Comics on the stands right now. Thank you guys so much for supporting our books the way you have been. And let's jump right into things with Harvey Kurtzman's Mad number 2. Got hold of the collection of Mad.
Pretty nice condition for that.
Yes. The one issue that I consider to be like it's almost a ceremonial that I have it. We'll never open it. Is that issue 1 because it's pretty beat up. But every other issue is pretty reasonable, man. 1953. Harvey Kurtzman edited piece. They're still finding their way with this new form of comics, this new almost genre. You know, like the idea of humor comics before this would just be follow one character around. It wouldn't be parody. It wouldn't be satire. And during these early Mad comics, what they were essentially satirizing was their own brand. There would be a horror section. There would be a crime section and a sci-fi section. So we start off the bat with, no pun intended, with a strip called Hex with the artwork done by the inimitable Jack Davis.
No. We start off this issue with an ad for one of their off-selling comics. This is so atypical from a business standpoint. Like, I used to see people complain about Batman ads and everything, and it's like, Batman's your number 1 book. Why are you putting more money behind Batman? That's business 101, because every extra copy of Batman is profit. Mm-hmm. They are pushing one of their less selling titles here in inside cover ad real estate. I'm kind of surprised by that.
Yeah, if you read the interviews with Gaines and Feldstein, the stuff that they were legitimately proudest of was their sci-fi works. It was the first Russ Cochran reprint is Weird Science. The fandom that grew around it was Legion. And Rising Tide raises all ships, doing their best to try to sell a couple extra copies of a floundering.
That's almost art ahead of commerce.
It's what gets to happen if you're the guy who runs the publishing company and your heart is going a certain way.
It highlights some of their business practices, which we then see with the page rates for these artists being much higher than the competitive publishers.
Yeah.
Back to baseball.
Body language, man. With that guy whiffing that baseball, quintessential Jack Davis pose.
He's so good. He's so good. And these remind me of, like, I would see Jack Davis. My first Jack Davis is probably ads for things like basketball, sports stuff. Yeah, exactly. And you see it all here. Like, the body language is so good. They're cartoony figures, but also they're not. You know, like, you look at the gear of the umpires and the catcher, and it's like, yeah, they're a little bit rubbery, but man, it's all super detailed too. Great spikes, like the shoes and stuff, so good.
There's a logic to it all. Like, you feel the form and the lighting feels accurate. Like, you feel how that shoe wraps around the foot.
He's somehow underrated. Because I never hear people talk about Jack Davis when you go, like, great figure drawers.
Yeah.
You know, he's a humor artist, except guess what? His war comics are phenomenal. Some of the best war comics. He's just a lot more, I think, than what he's kind of known for.
He's one of those dudes, too, that's swinging multiple implements when it comes to ink, and once again, no pun intended. But he's got the thick brush with this
Yes.
outside lines. Uses pen for the recessive marks and, like, the little details and things. And then he'll kick in some white for texture.
It's that cartooning 101, you know, those thick lines in the foreground and the pen in the back. And we're going to see some great backgrounds of these crowds coming in and out. Here it's pen lines and scratches and circles for faces. But there'll be moments, you know, where we get to see like 100 faces that he's drawing in the backgrounds.
Baseball is a good subject matter for a Jack Davis because this is certainly the era of like these hayseed ass baseball players, man, that were like straight from the cornfields. And the aesthetics of these characters all reflect that. And it was also that era too, man, where people in the crowd would be like known characters, ringside Rosie types.
It's funny to think of this as a Mad story because I kind of get into this story.
Yeah.
And it's not an obvious parody of anything.
Right.
And it just feels like good cartooning. Like I read this story and I'm invested. Like what's going to happen to our hero here?
Such a good rhythm to the dialogue and stuff. And I guess a little bit of it, you know, there was that very famous Tales from the Crypt story that Jack Davis did with the head baseball and things. The superstitions in baseball too, you know, there are superstitions in sports just in general. All these guys are being helped by God, you know. So satirizing that is part of the subject matter of this strip.
I think he's also hitting on current players and personalities. Like Yegi, you know, is Yogi Berra as your catcher here.
Yeah.
And then there's a guy later on, I think he's an announcer, that has to be based on somebody, and I don't recognize the reference, but you know, I think that may be some of the parody of the time.
The caricature looks like a real person, and shouts to Marie Severin, presumably, who's the colorist of this, because she really knows how to push things into the background and pull out the important bits.
Yeah, those figures are highlighted. You mentioned the heavy outline and versus like the pen lines in the background. It's reinforced by the colorist. Absolutely. It's almost like they're a team working together to create this vision.
When you have these syncopated moments, see, this is that announcer guy where it's like, that's somebody.
Yes.
There's no doubt that's clearly somebody. These are the Kurtzman beats that you noticed. So much of Jack Davis is all over these pages, but look at any other Jack Davis comic that Harvey Kurtzman didn't have a hand in. It does not have storytelling beats like this. And imagine trying to communicate this in a static comic page without the benefits of animation. I can't think of a better way.
No, you want it to be clear, and I think it's crystal clear. Something has gone wrong here.
And our guys win the game after a Faustian blood oath with this old bag of bones.
Yeah, like the fourth horror host. She doesn't have her own title yet at EC, but maybe she'll get one.
Yeah, man, straight up Mad Hetty from the Swamp Thing comics.
Man, Jack Davis is such a good cartoonist. Anytime he's drawing like multiple faces and everything, it just feels like he's pulling them out of just looking around on the streets or something and caricaturing everybody around him.
That pen is moving. Like I get the sense that there's not much penciling done there.
No, and still no two faces look the same.
That's true.
No laziness in that part of his game.
So, as Faustian blood oaths usually do, it's got to come home to roost, man. And our old Hetty is reminding our guy that he made a deal, and she helped him win the game. So, as the guys are trying to get access to their pal Casey at the bat, they crack into his room. He's not there anymore. His little voodoo doll, his trinket, his totem of...
Yeah, his good luck charm.
Yeah, good superstition sort of falls out of nowhere. They're like, fuck, I don't think we're going to see him anymore. As we see in Full Moon Zine, hashtag, right?
Absolutely.
The exit of our dude who is making good on his deal.
And I just want to show off, because it's the same color palette, but you can see the difference, whenever you upgrade paper or something like that. Same colors, very different end result.
Yeah. Yeah, the patina of... Jesus, it's almost 70 years, I guess, huh? Like 69-year-old comic.
Amazing. And also the bleed, like that newsprint really did absorb these colors and the ink, so you get a little desaturation with that too.
So that was our Jack Davis piece. Man, now let's go to the Jungle Department, which is not technically parodying anything specific from the EC brand. Closest would be Two-Fisted Tales, I guess, but... You could also think of this as like one of the first comic parodies if you think about
that's exactly
Burn Hogarth or Hal Foster, which is what we will explore more and more as we look through subsequent issues of Mad. And Hal Foster, Burn Hogarth, super important guy, Hal Foster especially, to this generation of cartoonists. And John Severin, the guy that I associate with Cracked Magazine, was in every one of these issues of Mad.
He's another guy I think of as a war comics guy, really good. And then you see him drawing humor and comedy, and it's like, I think that's what you had to be if you were going to be a professional cartoonist. Like, you had to be able to draw these genres, and humor was a big chunk of it back then.
Absolutely, man. Yeah, you had to be very diverse with your portfolio. Poses like this, it feels just like Hal Foster.
Totally.
You know, like there's nothing funny about that. It's amazing illustration.
Absolutely. But that's true. I feel like that's true of comedy, you know, at large. Like, you sort of have it running, I wouldn't say serious, but, you know, if you want the outlandish to really pop, that means the rest of it's kind of flat or straight.
I really feel like the Harvey Kurtzman brand of mad storytelling is what influenced like Mel Brooks and like the Airplane movies and those kinds of parody flicks, because you play it straight, but then you have chicken fat. What is it? It's chicken fat. You know, that's kind of all around.
Duo shade paper in effect on these too.
From the start with John Severin, like he would use that on his cracked works. And John Severin has whole issues of Two-Fisted Tales that are just, he draws them all. Uses a lot of duo shade on that stuff.
Yeah, this is such a bizarre story. It's Tarzan and it's head shrinkers are who he's sort of fighting with here, and then calls in the animal reserves with his Tarzan call.
Can you imagine?
And you get this kind of panel. It's amazing.
Can you imagine having to draw all these goddamn animals?
Yeah, I love that there's a whale like breaching, like as part of his.
It's just a little puppy dog, you know. it runs the gamut, and it feels like this is definitely one of those strips that like filler in a way, because like it's all building toward the joke is Shrunken Head, and we established this Goofus character early on, and now he's even more Goofus like.
Yeah, it's odd.
Yeah.
This speaks to your idea that this is still Kurtzman figuring out mad.
Absolutely. And speaking of Kurtzman, there's a little Kurtzman artwork to go along with the little magazine prose piece. Said it before, but for the benefits of newer viewers, these, when you get your old comic and it has a kind of prose story included, that's a requirement by the U.S. Postal Service to get cheaper shipping rates.
Yeah. Have you ever seen these stories from the Bible big books? 140 pages? 230 pages?
Yeah, no, not...
Very curious about that.
I've seen them out, but I never looked through them, and that these are the vestiges of Max Gaines. Basically, the OG graphic novels, you know, it's Bible stories.
Certainly trade paperbacks. I wonder if the artists are some of the same artists.
Yeah.
Surely not. We'd know them if they were.
It's true. Like, when you look at the earliest, like... So there's the new trend, like this is like the new trend, the Tales from the Crypt, and Russ Cochran put out War Against Terror and like a woman, a man, romance, or
yeah,
you know,
Moon Girl,
yeah,
right.
And the artists were cornballs, you know, just your standard golden age hacks. But then like a Wally Wood will show up, and a Johnny Craig will show up, a Graham Ingalls will show up at the end.
Is Feldstein around in those? I feel like he's in there pretty early on.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so. Also,
I love having, like, by doing the actual issues that you have, you get to see those ads and incidental pages, and I'm such a fan of that.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Gookum, Sci-Fi Department, and who better than to have Uncle Wally Wood as the artist on the sci-fi story doing what he does, man.
This is an oddball of a story.
It really is.
I don't know how much humor Wood had done up to this point, and... I mean, you get to see his cartoony chops on display here, and they're strong. You know, it's good proportions, big-headed characters walking around. But talk about a story that I just don't... Slight is maybe too generous.
It sent me down some rabbit holes because I'm trying to understand context, and that's the problem with Mad. It's so timely, so topical. The magazine that we knew. Mm-hmm. So I'm putting that baggage that I have and projecting it onto this old thing. So Jimmy, I went down rabbit holes of like reading about Jell-O,
right,
and Wikipedia and stuff. The only thing that I came out with is that in the 50s, Jell-O was already well established for 5 decades, because I thought that like, oh, it's a new dessert, like, thought, and it must be weird. You want to know the weird thing about the 1950s in terms of dietary consumption? Salad was a new trend in dieting and dining, that there were salad flavored Jell-O desserts, like a celery and like tomato and cucumber fucking Jell-Os. But Jell-O was invented in the 1800s, so
Yeah, so I wonder if it's a new marketing campaign that because
Right, like where it's
advertising
like
obviously going to be a big chunk of Mad
Yeah.
stuff. The other like the only other thought that I could really come up with that is something like plastic. Like I think of plastics is starting to get introduced, and I wonder if that has anything to do with it.
Well, what I was thinking is atomic age horror movies like The Blob in relation to Jello, like that,
Right.
like that's the other place where my mind went. But these are the blind spots that we're going to have as we proceed looking through these early issues of Mad, because we just don't have the context.
Whenever you reference like horror movies and you see in this like Jello like substance turning into the hand, that's creeping in.
Tough thing to
It's
draw.
funny. It is definitely horror references.
Like, look
there.
at this anthropomorphic thing, and imagine drawing that. You have to
weird.
think that through a lot. And we sold you out on, and we spoiled the punchline for you guys, man, because this Gookum, as it's known on this fellow traveler's planet, is just Jello parfait.
Have you ever had Jello with ice cream?
No.
Me either. Actually sounds kind of good to me. I'm a big ice cream fan. Never heard of those two together, so that might have been a popular 50s trend that came and went.
Yeah. Now, here's the thing, man. This issue is all building towards the Mole story by Bill Elder, longtime collaborator with Harvey Kurtzman. These guys went to the same freaking high school, and their collaboration, second to none. It lasted decades and decades and decades, all the way up to Little Annie Fanny. And this Mole story has been referenced and parodied by people like Alan Moore, and you see some of these references elsewhere. So Will Elder, known for being the creator of the idea of chicken fat, and you start to see little bits of that already in this image. It's just impeccably illustrated, pen and ink work. And once again, more shouts to Marie Severan's color choices.
Yeah, very bold, that blue monochrome for a night color palette.
Yeah. The other place where I immediately think of her blue monochrome color palette is that 2001 Space Odyssey Treasury Edition story that she colored with Jack Kirby.
It works so well if like the payoff is going to be gold and money. Nice contrast once he pops up in the vault.
It really does, man. And for the virtuosity of Bill Elder's drawing skills, just having these gun muzzles totally works. You don't need to get too detailed with it. Just these cylinders.
100%. Evan Dorkin, man. How much DNA of Will Elder is in Evan Dorkin when you look at a panel like that?
Absolutely. And it feels like this strip is the one, in terms of pacing, layout, and all the rest, that Kurtzman spent the bulk of his energies. And it's page turn stuff. So we have this image right here, and when we check out the next page turn, it's the same beat happening in that same panel.
It's even Brunetti stuff where it's the same size as we like close each page. It's kind of the same size of this character rolling through.
And check it out, man. Same deal. It's the same beat each time. This one too, where he has the realization of like what his like implements are. Well, I guess it's not the same, but it's same composition on the previous page, and he gets it, here and here. So just like the layout and the attention to detail in terms of putting this story out there, it's very intricate. And what we're seeing also with the cartooning, and I bet we got to give a lot of that gun barrel stuff to the credit to Harvey Kurtzman, because it feels like rubbery. Right? You could see the Kurtzman underneath this work.
Yeah, Will Elder is so good.
He really is, man.
It's so on display in this one. And I wonder if there's stuff here too that's almost situationist or some kind of like post-industrial revolution kind of stuff, because we're seeing the Mole just getting stripped down and down and down, eventually shaved and naked, like as he goes through life and trying to make that money, and by the end it's just nothing left of just worn down to almost the nub of a man. When he comes crawling out here at the end, there's just nothing left of him.
Yeah, like literally
he's missing teeth, he's naked, like.
And they're done with him, man. He's a 3-time loser.
Yeah, the system's been hard on our poor hero here.
And it's done. Here are our ads. Get a little lighter for your cigarette later. That's so funny, isn't it?
That's amazing. You think of what they're going to take them to task for in the Senate subcommittee hearings. How about selling cigarettes to kids?
With attractive childlike imagery. And I think this is probably some correspondence school stuff.
Yeah, that was always a popular one.
Radio, television technician. Jimmy,
I'll tell you what, man. If you'd have done that correspondence course, you'd have probably been set up pretty well.
I think so
time
too,
period.
man. In my lifetime, living down in Homestead, there were two stores that still sold big ass vacuum tubes for the little old ladies and shit that lived in town that had to cart their whole TV in, fucking take these tubes out, put it on a thing to see which vacuum tube is the one that's busted. Things have changed.
Yeah, that's the 40-year-old floor model TV they're bringing in there.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's bigger than this room, and it's like a 13-inch screen.
It is, yeah, absolutely. Because you need all those goddamn big ass vacuum tubes. Good to go, Jim?
Yes.
Kayfabers, like, follow, subscribe to the YouTube channel, hit the bell. We'll notify you when new vids are available. Jimmy, tell the people what's out there, man.
Hulk Grand Design Monster Madness is in stores now. Comic book size, 40-page each issue retelling of the Hulk 60-year history. But the collected Treasury size edition will be out in early 2023. Man, that is the book I've been working on my whole life. So pre-order that one now wherever you buy comics. And Street Angel, Deadliest Girl Alive from Image Comics is back in print after almost a year. I've seen these second printings. They are beautiful. Very happy with those. So pick that up wherever you get comics. 8 complete full-color stories. And join me on patreon.com/JimRugg where you can see a lot more of my comics. You can download some of my out-of-print stuff. And, yeah, join me there.
Red Room trigger warnings. Red Room, the antisocial network. Trade paperbacks are in stores as we speak. Murder on the dark web for fun and profit is the name of the game in Red Room Comics. Each book contains 4 self-contained stories plus 70 pages or more of additional materials, new artwork, behind-the-scenes commentaries, things like that. These books are available at finer comic shops, Amazon, online, wherever you may go. I'm serializing new Red Room material on my Patreon right now at patreon.com/edpiskor. $3 for the archive there. All these links are available in my link tree in the description below this video. Jimmy, tell the people what else is out there.
Subscribe to the Cartoonist Kayfabe newsletter at the links below this video. You can also find Cartoonist Kayfabe t-shirts, merchandise, mugs, fanny packs, and more at our spread shop at the links below this video.
Another great way to support the Cartoonist Kayfabe channel. Given those marching orders, we'll be on our way.
Read more comics. Yeah, Mad Playlist will be great.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. Because there's so many ways to skin that cat, dude. Like, I like doing those cover-to-cover things.
Me too.
I think
A year covers is great.
Yeah.
Decades are great. Themes are great. We've
Yes.
talked about doing Batman and wrestling and all these different things.
I'm gonna make you leave here with something.
Ooh.
Because I have the issues, right? So like we'll do you'll read the Batman stories. Like, this is gonna be a cool one. It's Batman Spectacular. So it starts off with 89. It has Batboy and Ruben. It has the Adam West show. It has Batman Returns. It has Clooney at the bat, right? That's funny. It has the animated
That's
series.
really sweet. Yeah, this looks great. That's cool.
So borrow this so that we can and maybe you let me know what all's in here, and I'll try to find the corresponding issues,
Okay.
and then we could fuck with it.
Do you have most of the specials? Is that part of your collection?
I might have that in there. Like, there are a lot of specials, but I don't know if I saw that one when I was putting shit away.
The one I think about is it's like Mad in the Comics or something, but it's like all comic spoofs. You know, like mostly for like newspaper comics. So it's older stuff. I don't know when that special's from. Probably early 80s, late 70s. But it's really cool, and I mean, it's almost all Wally Wood.
You know what, man?
Aping all these different newspaper cartoonists. So it's a really good one.
I think Alika took one thing out, but it didn't look necessary. I don't think it was that, because there was like one thing that was like worth. It would have made the collection worth like a lot more. And I was like, whatever, take it out, man, because it's already in the issues, you know.
Do you want me to shoot that, and we'll shoot it as the last video because we'll switch out the background color?
Yeah, give me Edge. And then I'll do Black Lightning, cause like Tribe, it's gonna be tough.
Does your Mad Run go all the way to the end?
It doesn't. It's like 50 issues away.
Wonder if those last issues are harder to find. Like
I
lower
don't
print runs.
yeah, I don't I mean maybe, but I could have pieced it together if I want to, and it's not any more expensive or anything like that. But you see how hacky it gets because it's all just Donald Trump. They just go for the cheap, like, we'll sell it because we're making fun of Donald Trump shit. And that just was never done. The cool thing about putting the issues together is, like, Eisenhower's president, Richard Nixon's president, like JFK, like you putting those issues in order.
Yeah.
Is this like it's like that thing at the beginning of Marvel movies where it's just like, here's American pop culture, because they were never wrong with the covers. Like there was never like some fly by night like stinker thing that they're making fun of. It was like, yeah, this is a 1981 thing. This feels right for 1967, whatever.
Man, I feel like we just need to go through the covers like every year's worth of Mad.
Yeah.
Chronicle that.
Totally.
It's such a fascinating record of America.
There will be like the ones like we do the ones from our age so that we can really speak on it and shit, because we're gonna, like, I don't know about Spiro Agnew and shit.
That's true.
You know what I mean? so we need like when we have Warren come through, like we'll make that one of the videos. It'll be easier on him so he doesn't have to bring so much stuff, and it's like we'll put that to use because, like, there's the one great gatefold cover, like the front and back cover, where it's all like ad icons.
Yeah.
So it's like Uncle Ben. It's like, I know the Quaker Oats guy, but I don't know this thing. I don't know that thing.
Yeah. Yeah, it'd be good to get Warren. That's a great idea for
he's super hip
Warren,
to that shit.
Warren video. Somebody mentioned about the 2010 era Mads. That's what they grew up with, and that looking back on them, there's a lot of stuff they're not interested in. I think that's probably true of almost anything, because like I think of everything through wrestling.
Yeah.
And I always think, like, we've talked about this, where you go, oh, the Attitude Era, it's so well remembered. It's remembered for its highlights.
Yeah.
But if you watch the hours and hours of Raw, like, you're going to find a bunch of the stuff that you're like, man, this is lousy television. But that's not how history works. Yeah. And I feel like that's probably the way Mad works too. The best of it, great. But there's filler in anything, or there's stuff that doesn't quite catch on.
The 1990 stuff that I grew up with, and I was like looking through that, I'm telling you, the lens that you enjoy those magazines is realizing that it's all by guys who've been at that magazine for 40 years.
That's funny too.
So it's like these grizzled old pissed off guys trying to understand Game Boy. Or Ninja Turtle movies. Like, what the fuck is happening in this universe? That, like, this is...
I always forget, like, I think Ninja Turtles had some backlash. Over time, we've all accepted them, but there's always, like, that previous generation, or maybe two generations above, that's like, what's wrong with kids these days? And Turtles there was some negative stuff around Turtles, if I remember correctly.
When it comes to the video game stuff, imagine, like, what 5,000 generations of parents who never saw their kid staring at a box like this.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I'm sure my parents were like, we fucked our kids up. They call it the idiot box, but we fried their brains because they're just sitting there.
Yes.
I
think of that all the time, where it's like the flip side is the people that went in that direction, you can make a pretty good living in video games. Right. So all those parents that are like, this is pointless, you're just wasting your life. Depends what you did with that.
That's true, man. Is this my water or yours?
That's yours.
Okay, cool. Let me get a sip real quick and we can do this. Good to go, Jim. You know what? Let's lock in fresh. Did we do that?
Mm-mm.
Yeah, let's do that. Welcome to Cartoonist Kayfabe. My name is Ed Piskor.
I'm Jim Rugg.
I'm going to be going to Tokyo Comic Con at the end of November, sharing a table with Uncle Jeff Darrow. So if you're in that region, stop through and say hi. The videos are brought to you by the comic books that we make. On the stands right now, I have Red Room, The Antisocial Network, and Red Room Trigger Warnings. Each of these trade paperbacks contains 4 complete stories, as well as about 70 pages of additional material that you won't find elsewhere. On the stands now, Jimmy has Hulk Grand Design Monster and Madness, which is going to be getting that beautiful Marvel Treasury Edition format in early 2023. And he has the Street Angel Deadliest Girl Alive trade paperback has received a new printing, so there is no excuse for you not to have that. Please support our books so that we can keep these videos coming. And today we're going to be taking a look at, I don't know if it was the height of the speculator boom, but it was thereabouts when Malibu, trying to take a couple bites of that apple, the original publisher of Image Comics, they're going to create an imprint called Bravora and have like some of the greatest talent of mainstream comics from around the 70s are going to spearhead a new effort. And we're looking at maybe one of Gil Kane's final comics, man. The Edge, written by Steve Grant. You don't need your entire seat. You only need the edge.
This is my first Gil Kane.
Okay.
Is how I remember this, and it's awesome because he's inking himself.
Yeah.
Gil Kane, one of the all-time great comic book artists, especially the superhero artist, and you get to see it. I really dug this stuff whenever it came out, and I liked looking at it again. Getting to go back through it, but we say it all the time. Love seeing an artist ink themselves.
Yes.
It's a very different approach. Kevin Nolan has inked Gil Kane to great effect, and I love that stuff. But it looks so different when Gil Kane is, working out the line himself. And these are revisionist superheroes, so that's the other piece. This is 94, I want to say, 93, 94. It is around that height of the speculator boom. Malibu has tasted the Image success, and when they leave, they start their own universe of characters that they mostly control, as well as like the next Image line or Legend line. Like, it seemed like everybody was publishing or self-publishing this stuff, and I bought this one at the time. It was probably about the time I started to find comic book shops, and I was on board. It's new heroes, and you get in on issue 1, and there's a lot more story here than like what I was finding in a lot of the Image comic number 1s.
Totally, absolutely, yeah. I mean, you got a writer with some pedigree who has some legit, continuity comics under his belt. Got Gil Kane, a guy who is tried and true, can tell a story. He doesn't work in that Todd McFarlane style. This guy makes stories and is. No, he is a veteran of the comic book, to be sure.
Also, this is the time now that we are getting coloring labs popping up everywhere. Interior coloring, Boo Tunes. No idea. Haven't heard of them a lot.
No.
But, there was enough demand to... you get a lot of names of colorists and colorist companies around this, like, 1994 era where it was like, hey, we can sell these products, but we need warm bodies to actually fill this stuff in.
Let's talk about that Gil Kane ink line. It's a very dead line. It's just a pen with no fuss or muss.
Very pure in a lot of ways.
The sort of boldness at the edge of this guy is like the one line that's a little bit different. I was gonna say maybe he's busting out a brush or something, but like he probably is just doubling up on that pen. Why would you bust out a dip pen for fucking one line?
Yeah, I have no idea. I've never seen any info on like what he's inking with. The only reason I could see doing a brush for a little bit is you're spotting some blacks.
Sure.
So maybe you do that and reinforce a line or something like that. But it feels like pen for the most part.
When I think about him, and it might be one of those like kind of flare pen things, man. Like Alex Toth and Gil Kane had a lot of battles, in the fan press or behind the scenes, and Toth, man. Famous curmudgeon, famous cantankerous motherfucker called Gil Kane, the man with 3 names and 2 noses, because he had some plastic surgery in his day. You can't ignore the part that these guys are called the Ultimates.
Yeah, I thought of that too, and they're kind of in that position of being separate from the people they protect. A new race, a superior race. It reminded me a little bit of something that we would see like... A lot of superhero teams, I think, took this direction.
Sure.
Is what I would say. Authority comes to mind in some ways.
Yeah, of course, man. I think this is a Gil Kane self-portrait right here, because he's got those little Polly Walnuts joints on the side. And this is almost that scene straight out of Watchmen, where there's a kind of a riot, a protest going on, and you have your overseers who watches the Watchmen.
Yeah, it's a good note, because here we are 28 years ago, this comic's up.
That's definitely Gil Kane, actually.
Yeah,
that's 100% him.
Yeah. Makes me wonder if this is maybe a Stephen Grant or something.
Right.
It's inevitable that every drawing is somewhat of a self-portrait, right? We look in the mirror whenever we're trying to figure out angles and stuff, so you can't get away from it. But it definitely, he mentions sort of the comics that this is inspired from, Stephen Grant, And I think it is still in the shadow of like that 1986 and the Grim and Gritty, the revisionist superheroes. It's only a few years after that.
Well, let's give them some updated 1990s names.
Oh boy!
Like Phase Shifter, Intruder, Free Agent,
Free Agent,
Winged Victory, Barricade.
Yeah, this
And
is.
willpower is 2 words, so it's like his first name is William.
I think Willpower has legs. Like, to me, that's a name that should have had a better run than he gets in the Edge comic.
Sure.
But this is an era when I can remember Wizard Magazine making fun of all these names.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
we've run out of names. And,
Totally.
and you could see it on that splash page.
Some of the storytelling is frankly abysmal in this comic. This is one page of that, where we're supposed to assume that this is this guy because of brown pants and, you know, standing on the car. This is just some dude out of nowhere. All these guys look the fucking same, but it's not the worst page of storytelling. We'll get there really, really soon.
Yeah, let's see that. Oh, yeah, I think it's a little bit further.
Yeah. You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, there are. You're right about that. Even some of the what word balloon do you read next? Anytime I got to ask which word balloon do you read next,
Terrible.
something has gone wrong.
Yeah, terrible. I mean 101 stuff, and there was a lot of that in here.
You know what? That said, I love this panel as being like your figure way in space above a pretty complex 3D background. I feel like Gil Kane's rolling out his perspective lines and stuff.
Yeah. His career, man. He seems so frustrated. Everybody that knew him or talked about him would speak about the erudite way he would talk. He was like a man of culture and class, and he appreciated fine art, but he couldn't break his pulp ways, and he would admit that publicly. Like, I just can't not do what I do. I have to do what I do. And here is our title character right there showing up, man, sort of in the shadows while the Ultimates are doing their thing. And this is almost, by the way, like that Michael Keaton Birdman flick.
That's interesting.
You know,
yeah.
He shows up, and in the sort of way they sell the figure is way more goth than he looks. You know, like Papa Shango type, but that's a pretty bouncy, poppy outfit.
Yeah, the costuming I think all around is pretty generic.
Yeah.
In this story, because I don't know that any of the costumes make sense with the idea that like this is an engineered group,
right?
You know, like they get into eugenics and stuff for how they're building this team up.
Yeah,
but you don't see anything that would make sense of like, oh, this is going to be like humanity's protectors or something. And even like the name Edge, like that guy's wearing this white and blue costume. Like it just doesn't totally like, why does he use swords?
Right.
Is he on the edge? Like, you know, none of it really. There's a little bit of disconnect, I think, conceptually. And you would see that in a lot of these creator-owned books where it's like we're building a whole world and we get there 75% of the way.
Yeah.
And because these guys are good, like I find this to be a pretty successful comic, but there are shortcomings.
There is. Classic Gil Kane kind of montage panel, something that I associate with him bringing this kind of aesthetic into comics.
I think that background piece too speaks to Gil Kane's ability to draw beyond what he was often tasked with. You know, like that looks like a real person, that looks like a suit coat. You know, he gets those folds right, like all these little details that's not how you're going to sell 8 million copies of issue number 1. But man, I admire the craft of it.
Yeah. Whole lot going on here in this comic. Our Birdman is going to be out of gas in a second, and you're going to get one of the worst storytelling pages. Like, it didn't work when Neil Adams did it.
I was going to say, like, this is a Neil Adams homage, lift, revisiting the site of the crime. Like...
So do you read it this way, and this is the last panel that you read?
I think that's is that the way it works?
It's like this, are you Jack? Jack is dead. Right? Like, so you read this, and then you read that after you read this?
Yeah.
It's bullshit. This sucks.
Yeah.
You have, like, I can't believe that veterans of the comic book field, who probably cumulatively, at this time, have 50 years of experience, come up with a page with this bad of storytelling.
Yeah, look, you mentioned Neil Adams, and it's that same deal. Like, I remember the Neil Adams page that resembles this, and it's the same deal. Like, it just doesn't lend itself to reading. And this is where you can get away with lean on your letterer. Like, you've got to construct the word balloons in a way that'll lead you, or at least make it obvious which word balloons to read in what order. To go from here to here, nobody's figuring that out on the first read.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
Yeah, it's a tough page. Weird choices. Makes you wonder like what anybody's thinking on that one.
So we're let's lean on the colorist a little bit too, because I believe like after we get past this page with our Edge character looking on ominously as our winged fella meets his maker.
I'm gonna throw a spoiler out, by the way. That winged dude was his brother, and he just killed him.
Yeah.
Ouch.
This is a flashback, right?
Mm-hmm.
No evidence in the color.
Right.
Barely any evidence in the writing.
Yeah, we could use rounded. There's a lot of ways to show flashback. You know, you could round those panel borders because we're going to like full bleed over here, but we've got a panel, so maybe round the corners, do something to indicate that it's not just business as usual.
Yeah.
But this is a group that was, I guess, maybe the first generation of these superheroes, or at least some other test subjects. I think these might have been prisoners that the experiments were conducted on, and they turn into a supervillain group called the Plague.
Yes.
You know, if your name's the Plague versus the Ultimates, how much leeway do you have? Like, you have to be villains if you're named the Plague.
No doubt, man. Also, take a drink anytime the name Jack or Eric is said in this comic, because it really is a Kaneda Tetsuo amount of name dropping. There's your Eric right there.
Yeah, just in time. Morning cocktails out there, everybody.
Yeah, it's a fascinating era, this Bravura era, because there is a certain kind of comic that all kids agree are like the thing to buy, and they buy it in big numbers. So everybody else is trying to play catch up or try to get a little piece of that. And you have to abuse a lot of your kind of knowledge and education. It's like driving on the wrong side of the road over those double yellow lines when you know it feels so wrong, but you got to do it in order to sell and to be interesting to the kids that are buying these crazy comics. And it's interesting to see a Gil Kane version of that.
Right.
Like abusing a lot of the things that he had instilled in him for his entire life. And to me, that's a lot of like what the Bravura line is. You know, it's veterans, people who've been in the game for 3 decades up to this moment, trying to like unlearn how to ride a bike.
I think that they just weren't prepared to create a whole world. You know, if you're coming from 40 years, 50 years of doing Marvel and DC,
Yeah.
the world's built. You
Right.
just got to show up and try to do something deadline friendly. You know, it doesn't even have to be audience, friendly. It just needs to be something that like deliver the product of the Atom or whatever character you're working on. And we've got here's their world and their supporting cast. It's a lot of lifting to do.
Yeah.
You know, and we talk about like universes that all these different companies try to build. It's almost impossible to build a universe from the ground up. And if you read those early Marvels, like they're not doing that either.
No.
They're doing little pieces.
It
It's
happened
steps.
naturally. Yeah.
Exactly. But the pressure is on whenever because that's who you're competing against. And, 4 or 5 other publishers that have whole lines of these new worlds. So it is a lot of lifting, and it's for guys who have little to no experience on that side of the,
That's true.
that side of comics.
That's true. But here's the thing also, I mean, same could be said for those Image guys that are selling a bunch. You know, like no issue 1 of an Image comic reads like an issue 1 of any kind of comic. This feels like a missed opportunity, man. Like in terms of texture with that ink pen, like a lot of screen door for scale.
This is exposition, right? This is giving our backstory.
Yeah,
and I
like
mentioned that because exposition is going to come up in a few of the books that we look at this week. So maybe as you're watching these videos or reading comics, think about how exposition's handled. At least there's some visuals here. It's not just a talking head, Show us some dinosaurs, try to make it more interesting. I don't know that it is all that much more interesting, but there you go. We're building a world, and here's the backstory on how these heroes get their superpowers.
Yeah, and of course, as our Richard Dawkins dad characters talk about human evolution and all of that, it's got to go to the place of creating Master Man sort of thing. And his sons are there bearing witness to Daddy's experimentations.
And of course, they're being experimented on by the old man.
I mean, I would just be offended to be in the presence when Dad is making me face that camera view of this fella that
roll
you have
that
in
dude
bondage.
around. Of course, then the reader's looking at it, so maybe he's doing us a favor. He's taking one for the reader right there.
And of course, one brother's on board, the other is not. You're making monsters, and I bet Edge is the one who is the good guy.
I betcha.
Dad is upset. He's created bondage dominations attire for the boys when they go out and try to. What's happening is through eugenics, this guy. Also, why do you always gotta be experimenting on fucking dangerous prisoners? Like, how about Mother Teresa or something? Like somebody who's like
some benevolent character that wants to help even more.
Yeah. Like Chain Gang works that way. Like it's always a dude that's jacked up who ain't right in the headpiece. We're gonna give him.
Yeah.
We're gonna elect him to be the next phase of human evolution.
Didn't you all read Captain America? Like, let's get a noble guy in this experiment.
And what's happening is, like, the first generation of these guys they're wiling out. They're going nuts, as one would expect. And so the boys have to kind of bring them back in. But like what's the deal with this? So like, he didn't exactly kill his brother. Like, some mechanism inside the brother just kind of like a failsafe.
He hit him with these darts, and I think it's the last legacy of. So the dad's dead now. Everybody believes Edge is dead. Mm-hmm. This is going to be a mystery that unfolds. But Edge has a weapon from his dad that basically shuts down whatever that superhero gene is. It happened instantly. You know, he thought he was going to hit his brother and it was going to fade. But he hit it and it just shut it down and no longer could fly, collapses and dies. But now we've got this, you know, if you're a living super character, whatever, now you realize somebody's hunting you that can kill you. You know, this is not the rioters on the street.
Right. How about the colors here, baby?
And also the exposition. Let's go to the cemetery and catch everybody up on what's going on.
Right. Look at these. I mean, that's tough.
Yeah.
Those tombstones and stuff.
They are. The gradients are tough throughout this issue.
Awful.
A lot of backgrounds are these like multiple gradients. Because you don't do complementary colors in a gradient. You know, purple doesn't become orange without losing all color in the middle. This was, again, you expand so fast that you're just giving anybody you can get in front of the computer, you get to color this comic, that's what you end up with.
And we're barely in the comic industry, really. Like, they're making these floppies that could then sell other stuff. You're going to make more money selling a shirt than you are the comic per unit.
I want a zine of all of the ads because we see these in 8-Ball and they're amazing. Hand lettered, hand drawing, nice designs. But you see them here too. We're going to see them in Tribe. They're in everything. And it's, I don't know, man. It's a part of comics, especially in 90s comics. I need that zine.
All right, here's the rest of the Bravora line, man. Dreadstar that had, half dozen, 10 publishers up to this point. Like, we interviewed Jim Starlin down at Heroes Con, and he was talking about, like, I'm taking Dreadstar from this publisher to that publisher. I haven't heard of neither of those publishers. Walt Simonson on Star Slammers, like, these guys are associated with these characters. Then you got Power and Glory, Uncle Howard Chaykin, going to do a superhero.
Probably my favorite read of the group.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
The other one that I really like. This is the ad. Oh, that's a window into time, right?
Yeah, for sure, right.
So is the Death of Superman, because we were just looking and talking about this year when Superman returns. 4 of the top 5 books of the year are the Superman Return, and the 5th one is Turok. And that is like, we had retailers weigh in that are like, that's when sales plummeted, and they started ordering less. So this is your signifier of where at the end of the speculator boom has stopped. Man Called Axe, issue number 1. I freaking love it. I don't love the series, but man, that first issue is one of my favorite comics. That'll be another one we look at if we look at any more of these Bravoras. But yeah, it's
Power and Glory ain't even here. I guess Uncle Howie's a later edition. We'll see him. We'll see him for dinner Thursday and ask him about it.
Yeah, that's interesting that he's not on there. But you know, you talk about like Edge kind of in a lot of these comics dealing with like image is what's selling. So how do you do superheroes? Acknowledging that Edge is one attempt at that. Man Called Axe to me is the most successful that I've read. It's almost a parody of like the Image 90s style. Yeah. And like I said, issue 1 is really spot on. As they go deeper into the story, I get less interested. But issue 1, they nail that stuff.
Super fun, man. There it is. Edge, one of Gil Kane's final comics in the game, man.
I also loved it because his figure drawing's so spot on.
It
so
is.
When you have that superhuman in the vat turning whatever, It's like Anatomy 101.
Yeah,
It's Bern Hogarth or something that you're studying
It's
there.
absolutely Bern Hogarth. He comes from that school, and he's very famous for doing like an hour of like figure drawings and stuff before he puts work on the page, man, to just kind of get that wrist action moving, man. And you kind of see it. He builds those figures like logical puzzles.
Yeah, I think that's a big part of what attracted me to it.
This muscle goes here, that muscle goes there. You twist it into space, it'll be shorter. Like
His ability to twist it,
it's
too,
very
is second to
mechanical.
none.
Yeah. He's got some shit figured out, no doubt, man. Kayfabers, like, follow, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Hit the bell. We'll notify you when new vids are available. Jimmy, tell the people what's out there, man.
Hulk Grand Design Monster Madness comic books available now. The oversized Treasury Edition will be available in early 2023. Let your comic shop know that. Pre-order it so Marvel knows how many of those to print. Street Angel Deadliest Girl Live, back in print after almost a year out of print. I just saw the new printings, so those are available, again, wherever comics are. And join me on patreon.com/JimRugg, where you can see lots more of my comics and art, and you can download some of my out-of-print zines and mini comics.
Red Room, The Antisocial Network, and Red Room Trigger Warnings trade paperbacks are in stores as we speak. Murder on the Dark Web for Fun and Profit is the name of the game in Red Room Comics. Each of these books contains 4 complete stories, and all of those stories are self-contained. Each book has more than 70 pages of extra material between its covers. And I'm serializing new Red Room stuff before it hits paper on my Patreon, patreon.com/EdPiscor. Hit up my link tree in the description below this video for all of those links to those destinations. Jimmy, tell the people what else we have out there, man.
Subscribe to the Cartoonist Kayfabe newsletter at the links below this video. You can also find Cartoonist Kayfabe t-shirts, merchandise, mugs, fanny packs, and a lot more at our spread shop, also in the links below this video.
Another great way to support the Cartoonist Kayfabe channel. Given those marching orders, we'll be on our way.
Read more comics. You got one more?
Yeah, I do. I'll do Black Panther. Because what else do we got? I mean, Black Panther, yeah, Black Lightning. What else do we have? We have Prime. We have
Prime, Cobra, and Tribe. 8 vids this week.
Yeah.
Plus the live stream, man, we are really delivering to you guys.
Yeah.
Working hard.
This is fun, man. This is a good one.
Some parallels, I think, between this and Prime.
Yeah.
Maybe not. There's just some high school scene.
Yeah, sure. No, yeah, totally, man. And I got thoughts. All right. Good to go. Welcome to Cartoonist Kayfabe. My name is Ed Piscor.
I'm Jim Rugg.
Teenage Trevor Von Eden comics are under the microscope today, but first, gotta let you guys know I'm gonna be at the Tokyo Comic Con sharing a table with Uncle Jeff Darrow at the end of November, man. Thanksgiving weekend to the people here in the States. We're going to Ribera Steakhouse that Thanksgiving. On the stands right now, I have a couple of comics, Jimmy has a couple of comics, and the videos are brought to you by the comic books that we make. Red Room, The Antisocial Network, and Red Room Trigger Warnings are my current books that are on the shelves. Murder on the Dark Web for Fun and Profit is the name of the game. Each of these books contains 4 stories with additional material ranging into 70 pages plus. Jimmy has on the stands Hulk Grand Design Monster and Madness in issue format. It's going to be receiving the Treasury Edition collected format in the beginning of 2023, and Street Angel Deadliest Girl Alive trade paperback containing 8 complete stories is back in print. Get your hands on it. Help support the Cartoonist Kayfabe channel and continue to make these videos possible. And without bearing any leads, man, we are Trevor Von Eden fans here in Cartoonist Kayfabe compound. Black Lightning #1. When Howard was the guy.
17 when he's drawing this. And there's an interview in issue 2. It's not really an interview, but it's kind of a profile of him. That he was, he was at Columbia University studying medicine when he's 16, but also sending stuff into DC. I think his first DC work may have been published when he was 16. So he is just an uber talent at a very young age. And Tony Isabella, your writer, your co-creator of Black Lightning, wrote Black Lightning through several volumes as it would go on. But man, and Frank Springer, we should say, is co-credited as artist. So I don't know if that means inker, finisher,
I bet
co-lifting in a way.
I bet he's tightening up a lot of this teenage dude's kind of shortcomings.
Probably, but man, it's strong. It's a really strong effort. And it's a new character, which has to be fun, and especially for I feel like a young person, like stuff is there's energy on these pages, man. I love this right away, like this background where it is just like a flat perspective in our background as he's fighting these local drug pushers, and it starts with action. We often talk about issue ones and how do you begin these things. We're going to get more info on Black Lightning as the issue unfolds, but man, to start out, let's see some action.
Yeah, let's sell the character and make us care about him a little touch, man. The storytelling is the fly shit, dude, where Black Lightning like lunges over. Like, that is sharp figure drawing,
Yes.
man. That feels really solid. That character is balanced on that hand. It all feels good. The perspective of the leg with the shadow, with the volume of that, the back of the ankle there, and then the duck and the pop,
Yes.
with the bingo button, dude, with the same camera view. That's
Yeah.
hard as fuck.
It is. I had this. My first exposure to this was in one of those little DC Digests when I was a kid. I don't know where I got that or how. It was before I was really reading comics, and there were like maybe 5 or 6. There was a Bernie Wrightson and Swamp Thing, and there was like DC used to publish those Best of the Year.
Yeah.
This is 1977, so whatever that would have been, I think there was an Inferior 5 story in there. But I remember reading this, and I remember this guy swinging that wrench, just burnt into my like 7-8-year-old brain.
It's so good, man. And I guess we could probably say this is an answer to like Luke Cage kind of comic. DC had nothing close to that before Luke Cage came onto the scene.
Yeah, definitely, and all in response also to the blaxploitation film movement of the 1970s and its success.
And he kind of talks with that Holy Christmas kind of shit a little bit. He's got like his own like little saying that they're trying to like wedge in there. And you could bet that these are like drug dealer dudes.
Yes.
Invading a school, and he's got problems with that.
Such a cool, like, we're going to show our hero, cool lighting. Yes, we talk all the time, number ones, this is what you do, man. Sell that hero, get us on board. And looking cool is a big part of it. And he's a fun character because here we go. This is him out of costume. Even the mask and the hair is part of the mask to really hide this identity because it is tied to a school.
Yeah, I like to think that it's like adamantium lined, like helmet underneath that hair.
That's genius. Man, I don't know that it is, but that's a brilliant idea for a character.
Like, it's more a helmet than a mask in my
I love it.
eye.
And he's buddies with this shopkeeper
who happens to be a tailor. Very important, man. How you get that costume created. That's what all these kids have to figure out.
They do that pretty seamlessly too. I feel like that would be half an issue in today's comics decompressed storytelling, but here it's pretty deft.
There was that what you call it, man. It was a Morgan Freeman flick where he's like the tough principal or teacher that's gonna like turn all the kids around. This is a superhero version of that.
It is.
He's showing up. I even think like flicks like Above the Rim. Like there's like the janitor guy who gets hold of the basketball, schools everybody, and they're like, "Who is that dude?" There's a lot of stuff that came from this that like this touches on.
There's some harsh stuff in here too. So our first encounter is he returns as like an Olympic hero. He's coming back to the school where he grew up and going to be a good example, going to be an educator. And it's neat, the dichotomy between that character and the Black Lightning character with the afro and kind of the blaxploitation tropes. And his first encounter is with the star athlete. And this is one of the harder edges of this comic because this is comics code stuff. Like we're not going to be doing speedy drugs on the cover and stuff like that.
There's some still grisly shit in here.
Yes. Yeah, it's like no holds barred. They're not taking prisoners in this issue.
And we're selling the star athlete. He's doing it up right, man. He's got 2 chicks. He's gonna show his wares, and they're gonna have a friendly contest. Basketball gets shot. Here are like. For a bunch of like heavies, man, they really are dapper dressers, huh? They went to Dapper Dan in Harlem for their outfits.
Yeah, this is the high level of the drug dealers. This is several steps
above,
up the chain.
Consignment. Yeah.
But this is their high school, so you got to bring in the upper management. This teacher's going to disrupt our affluent high school grounds. I don't think so. I love the basketball to the face too. So the star athlete is now teaming up with the new teacher, and the basketball to the face. That's a pretty effective move.
Oh yeah, because
I think we've all felt that.
You catch that it's as effective as a punch to the nose. Your eyes will water up and then you'll be useless. Kingpin's in this comic.
Yes, he is. Yeah, with a really strange choice for a ring.
Yeah, he's the big whale. His name should be like Moby Dick.
Yeah. Yeah, he doesn't quite catch on the way Kingpin does. Miller doesn't use him in the Batman.
Yeah, I'm real curious to see what he looks like, but we ain't going to get that this issue, I don't think, huh?
I don't know if we get a face shot or not. But if you've seen Kingpin, you've seen him.
Look at this shit, man. This could be your career, you know, doing illustrations in pointillism for Hungry Plant ads.
Those were trendy when I was a kid, and
Sure.
I had a Venus flytrap,
Sure.
and I'd feed it like bacon. Like you had to feed it some kind of thing, and the bacon was salty and like ate a hole through the leaf.
Yeah, it's a bummer.
It didn't work.
Yeah, the one problem with having those is that they release a pheromone that actually attracts bugs. So now you got bugs flying around in your house.
Yeah, it's no good. One more. Let's just keep going down this Venus flytrap.
Yeah, sure, happy.
We did that great episode on Quesada's like dentist story where it's all shot through the mouth. I just saw a still from Little Shop of Horrors of like Steve Martin working on the mouth of the Venus flytrap, and it's the exact same shot.
You're gonna be a dentist. Great song, man.
So these drug dealers, man, how are you going to get back at this new teacher, this hotshot teacher? Let's pick on the student.
Yes.
And that goes wrong, and they kill him.
Well, let's take it there.
Like, we have seen this guy, and he's really portrayed as, like, good guy.
Yeah.
You know, totally positive, everything. Like, you're pulling for him, and our main character sees himself in this guy. This is the reason he's back here, to turn this place around, and they kill him. And that's pretty heavy.
And it's also in that, like, use the guy's love and just, like, pervert the thing that was most important to him, man. Like, string him up on a fucking basketball hoop.
Yeah. Yeah, that's sending a message.
Yeah, and it hits him. It affects our guy. And he goes back to his tailor friend who's like, I'm going to fucking whip you up something, dude. I associate that with Trevor Von Eden. Mm-hmm. You know, those crazy colors and things. Makes you wonder if there's a note.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like, all the art, you'd have no idea this is a kid drawing this book.
No, I do think that Frank Springer's probably like doing a bulk of the lifting because we know Trevor Von Eden's work, and you could see unmolested Trevor Von Eden art in Foom. Like he sent in fan art when he around the same time basically. Mm-hmm. Like we look at that. There's a video that we have with Chris Pitzer where we're going through that. We call it out, so you could see what it looks like, and it's not this tight. Like Frank Springer is doing some things to make this a professional comic. Like this kid has storytelling chops. He's got what he needs to get in the door. And it's an investment from DC Comics. Like they're going to invest in his talent and know that like you give this kid some assignments, he's going to sharpen up. He's going to become tighter and tighter. But this is what the Taylor came up with, man.
It's kind of cool because it's almost two origin stories.
Yeah.
The first one is just, you know, him returning to his stomping grounds, and we get the history of him as a kid growing up here, tough neighborhood. This is a guy that helped him out a little bit. But then we get like the real origin. Like whenever that student's killed, like, okay, this is he was hoping to clean up this school, and now it is like life mission.
Yes, it's a cool thing. Like the captions really are seamless with the rest of the storytelling. You're not bogged down. So you'll get your modern day sequence, and then it'll be like memory and describe, you know, a moment from the past. Little montage element, and see we're taking it back to a modern day because there goes our dude swinging that wrench and catching one to the kisser.
Yeah, it sets up the stakes and it sets up the sides very clearly here in issue 1. Also, he's in Metropolis. So you can imagine we're going to see a Superman guest appearance sooner or later.
Right. See, that's a helmet.
Yeah, it is.
It just has like a nice kind of hair exterior with like pretty heavy looking sideburns. Mm-hmm, like those things look like, you know, you could probably cut somebody with that.
Man, it does look like a character that you would have seen like they must have considered this as like a movie character.
Right.
You know? How could you not look at this and think, yeah, we could do that? I mean, there's nothing spectacular there.
It's true, and they're keeping it like low enough budget in terms of the set pieces that like, yeah, you could manage that.
Yep.
Super fun. Never read this one.
Yeah, I picked these up when I was doing Aphrodisiac. As you can imagine, I was buying anything like that I could find, Power Mans, all that. And there weren't a lot of offerings, but this was one of the standouts.
Super fun, man. You good to go?
Yep.
Kayfabers, like, follow, subscribe to the YouTube channel, hit the bell. We'll notify you when new vids are available. Jimmy, tell the people what's out there, man.
Hulk Grand Design Monster Madness is the comic book version. The Treasury oversized edition with 40 extra pages will be out in early 2023. fluorescent green cover. You won't be able to miss it unless you don't pre-order it and they run out. So let your comic shop know you want a copy. Street Angel Deadliest Girl Alive is back in print from Image Comics, and a nice new edition. 8 full-color stories, completely self-contained, perfect for this upcoming holiday season. And join me on patreon.com/JimRug, where you can see lots more of my art and comics, download out some of my out-of-print zines and mini comics there.
Going to be at Tokyo Comic Con at the end of November, last weekend in November, man. So if you're in that region, swing through, stop by, say hi. And my comics on the rack today are Red Room The Antisocial Network and Red Room Trigger Warnings book collections. Each contain 4 full stories. Each of these books contains more than 70 pages of additional material. And you could get these books on Amazon, online comic shops, wherever you find convenient. I'm also serializing future Red Room comics on my Patreon right now today. More than 300 pages up there for $3 for the archive. New strips every Tuesday. Hit up my link tree in the description below this video. You'll be able to get to all those destinations. Jimmy, tell the people what else we have out there, man.
Subscribe to the Cartoonist Kayfabe newsletter at the links below this video. You can also find Cartoonist Kayfabe t-shirts, merchandise, mugs, and more at the links below this video.
Another great way to support the Cartoonist Kayfabe channel. Given those marching orders will be on our way.
Read more comics. Yeah, I think the teenage angle of that is something to play off.
Absolutely, man.
It's amazing. I'm so impressed by anybody that's a teenager and can do professional level work like that.
Yeah, and just, I mean, listen, we fucking drew comics when we were kids. Couldn't get past page 3. And the work wasn't, like, at that craft level neither. So,
no,
like,
not even close.
So, like, there's so much there. There's legitimate virtuosity.
Definitely.
You know, people abuse those kinds of words often, you know. But how can it be anything else? How could you call it anything else, man?
I'm gonna hit the bathroom.
Yeah, do it. Kick it with the chat room for a hot minute. Yep. What's going on, chat? We're about halfway done. Jimmy has 3 vids to shoot and record. How'd you guys like that Klaus shoot interview from this past week? Right before we ended the stream last week, somebody's like, "You got Klaus, didn't you?" And we couldn't say anything. I could only smile. Got a good shoot interview this Sunday coming up, man. We shot it first thing this morning. But very proud of it, and inspiring talk, and really set the stage for today, man. It really got the juices flowing between Jimmy and I. Wouldn't you say so, Jimmy, man? That conversation we had earlier today kind of set a good pace for a recording session.
A lot of juice there.
Yeah.
Have your stand.
Oh, of course. Yes.
Yeah, it was a very, very fun interview this morning. Some surprises there for me. Say it all the time, but I'm the first Kayfabe effect, and I feel like I learned some stuff this morning.
Straight up, dude. Like it's kind of silly how that shit works, man. Because even on a day like today, right? Like when we're doing a recording, and you're gonna bounce and edit your vids. When you upload your videos, you might notice that there's one view, because I'm just like, let me enjoy an episode, man, while I'm, inking or whatever the fuck I'm doing. They love talking about Ken Landgraf, and I agree. I brought it up to Jimmy, like, I don't know if you reviewed the video, but the part where, like, when I run in and go grab that new piece, I'm sure he hasn't seen new Landgraf art in many years, and show it off. Klaus is in 2 seconds like, amazing. He still got it. And he ain't playing,
Oh man, I'm a fan. I know he's not. All right, this is gonna be a fun one today. We got it. I'm telling you, this was a fun week of reading.
Yeah.
Doesn't always work that way, but this is a good one. You want to do an inside page? That'd be easier.
Joe Anderson, thanks for the super chat. He's saying, Jimmy, thanks for visiting DCAS.
Hey man, thanks for everybody that came
Jacksonville.
out down there. That was a really fun show, fun weekend. You know what? Somebody slipped me there were the like the EC art. I don't know if they were Russ Cochran, but they were the catalogs for like art sales.
Yeah.
And he gave me the first 3.
Yeah.
So we may have to do one of those art games again. I haven't had a chance to go through them, but if it's anything like those catalogs we had from Steranko,
Yeah.
I feel like that'll be fun to look at, like what they were selling, what they were charging, all that stuff.
There's still a catalog 3 for us to play that game. Maybe next week.
That's a fun game.
Yeah.
I enjoy that. That might be a fun one too, live.
For the stream, dude. Oh my goodness, streamers, you guys will fucking love that stuff. You know, the only problem is they won't be able to see the shit, so
That's true.
They're gonna have to. They're not gonna be able to play so accurately.
All right, I think I am ready when you are, Ed.
Okay, we're locked in. We're good. Showing off your drip.
Hello and welcome to Cartoonist Kayfabe. My name is Jim Rugg.
I'm Ed Piskor.
Before we dive into Larry Stroman's Tribe #1, some news. Ed will be in Japan for Tokyo Comic-Con at the end of November, so check him out there along with Jeff Darrow sharing a table. Talk about a good setup. Also, Cartoonist Kayfabe videos are brought to you by the comics that we make. Ed Piskor's Red Room Trigger Warnings and Red Room The Antisocial Network are now in stores everywhere. These are 4 completely self-contained stories that you can read in any order, so whichever volume you come across first is the perfect place to start on Red Room. My latest is Hulk Grand Design Monster Madness. The comic books are out now. The oversized Treasury Edition will be out in early 2023, but you got to pre-order that one now. And Street Angel, Deadliest Girl Alive, back in print after almost a year from Image Comics. Get this one wherever you pick up comics. And speaking of Image Comics, Tribe by Larry Stroman and Todd Johnson. And you can see I've got Todd Johnson's signature on my copy, but I don't have Larry Stroman for some reason, which is BS.
I've seen Larry Stroman sign it, and he
Is
only
it signed inside here?
he only signs it on the inside cover, a very specific
Wonder
place.
why. Yeah, legendary signature often written across this inside front cover. I wish I could offer that here today, but I can't. But what I'll say about Tribe is this is like as soon as Image Comics starts, this is 1993, the following year, and part of that second wave coming off of X Factor. Whenever they relaunched all those X books, with Jim Lee's X-Men #1 being the most prominent, I loved Stroman's take on X Factor. That was a revelation for me. That was the first time I had seen his art, and it looked so different than everybody else. Did not look like he was looking at the same people coming up.
Not at all, man. Like Egon Schiele, the Aeon Flux looking shit for sure. This book, I would love to know numbers. It had to sell zillions because when the market implodes and Kmart's have the multi-packs, there really weren't that many Image comic like holofoil shiny covers.
Yeah.
And this would be the front of multi-packs. You know what I mean? Like this is ubiquitous. And then when people start getting hold of it at my school with the big booty, like forget about it. Like everybody got it just for the inside cover.
I don't know how I feel about this cover. I think it looks good on screen, and I always associate this book and these creators with being a little more design conscious. You'll see stuff kind of names of designers in their credits and things.
Yeah.
And the cover looks really cool like this, but man, I want to see Stroman art.
This is iconic, and I'm going to prove it. Hang tight for 1 second.
All right.
So, I mean, so many of these things came out that, like, that, you know, that is iconic to me. So whenever I was doing, like, my image style zine thing, like, flip it on the back. Like,
yeah.
like I had to go gold and just, like, with the emboss and all that shit, totally based on
That's sweet.
the Tribe vibe. And this is Dan Clowes created that piece.
Yeah, that's amazing.
But it's totally
I
based
assume
on
this is what you referenced to Gary Groth when you're like, yeah, we'll do the foil embossed cover.
I mean, dude, like the whole bit, like I made sure to put Gary Groth's name in here as many times as possible because he was like, Ed, what the fuck am I publishing here? I'm like, don't worry about it.
That's so good.
I'm gonna make you some money, Uncle Gary. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, but over time, I mean, it has become somewhat iconic to me. You know, I'm sure people will talk about finding this in 50-cent bins and dollar bins because, like you say, they printed a lot of these books. 93, things were still in that full-on expansion mode.
I think these guys are set up. I don't think Larry Stroman has really worked since.
That's interesting. Kyoto on coloring.
Yeah.
It's one of the colorists that I really think stands out from this era.
Totally. With all the optics color separation. So just this smooth transition, it's hard to describe, but like this is like the best of computer coloring of that time. And I'm assuming we're going to just take a quick look at like the future issues also, and you're going to see how it drops off immediately. Like Ollie Optics and the guys who come from Ollie Optics are the best of this cutting edge color because everybody else at the time was really playing catch up. Steve Olive, the Ollie and Ollie Optics, had such a leg up on everybody from his month after month tenure on the Akira Epic series from Marvel. So he had the leg up on everybody when it came to computer color separations, and he got to see month after month after month how those colors translated. So he beat everybody.
That's a really good point. And to your, like this gradation, calling it the best, we've looked at some gradation from this era, and what we would see are things like going from purple to yellow or orange, a complementary color, and you get a gray in the middle. What you've got to do is go from purple into like your magenta so that you don't have complementary colors creating that gray, and that's what you see here. Go from your purple, get rid of the cyan, and then you can bring in your yellow, and no harm, no foul.
Yeah.
So the art in this book, I like it. I think this is Stroman. All the stuff that I like about Stroman is on here. I have no idea who any of these characters are, who's good guys, bad guys, what the conflict is. It's so confusing for me from a story standpoint.
Yeah, like these dudes, they knew that there was going to be a lot of copies of this. So the important thing, this is the most entrepreneurial first effort I've seen of probably any comic, and that includes Todd McFarlane's Spawn, because he did not have Todd Toys and all that shit set up in fucking issue 1. Well, you could keep going because there's no story here. I didn't read it. Like I was like, okay, I'm gonna read it for the first time. Like I had it, I tried to read it a million times. I'm actually gonna read it. I quit. I got bored as fuck. But when you see our dudes with like shirts and hats on, like they're adorning all this like fly fashion, and you notice it in the body of the comic. Like, oh, okay, man, he's like decking these dudes out in like pretty cool shit. There's like scenery, like these sets that are important, and then when you get to the end and you see that you could buy the hat that the dude is wearing, you could buy the shirt that the dude is wearing, you could buy the hype club fucking shirt. Like these dudes realize that they're in the business of being able to sell these pamphlets at a couple of 100,000, if not $1 million. So add a couple of more things that people can buy, and if you get 1% of those, 200, 400,000 people to buy a shirt, you're fucking set up even further now. Because yeah, sure, royalties on a $1.95 comic that's selling in the hundreds of thousands, yeah, that's sexy. But what's the margin on a t-shirt? You're making $8 a shirt or something like that. Our big booty chick is starting to show up. And there would be stuff like the fixation my dudes would have with like a little nip slip. Mm-hmm. Like we'd never seen that.
Yeah, and this is kind of the breakout, I think one of the breakout characters of this series.
Oh, yeah.
Like she's so identifiable from any one single image. But what you see here is like she's training, right, against this, I guess that's a small person, I think it's supposed to be. And whenever she goes in to kick, he breaks into a bunch of these little figures. And it's like this book is just filled with these superpowered characters. The club scene is a guy who can just like remake the physical space, remakes himself at one point, which makes it even harder to figure out like who's who and stuff. But then you get in and you start to see like, oh, this is a super fast character. How do we do that? And you get that... it's not exactly the what's the effect?
The DeLuca effect.
Yeah, it's not exactly a DeLuca, but it is almost something you'd see in manga where it's like, how do I show 20 punches in one panel?
Like Hara Tetsuo would do that shit.
it's kind of cool to see that. It's just cool images. It's cool graphics to me.
Yeah.
All these different, almost like superhero tropes. You could almost see them as like, hey, Marvel, do you want to buy one of these characters? Like, this guy's super fast. This one, it can split into different characters. So it's a world of, I think in interviews, whenever we covered this in like Wizard, he talks about how they could have 5 million or 500 of these characters running through the book. It's a cool idea. It sounds different than your average comics, but it makes for very hard, like I said, to follow. I can't name one of the characters from this cast.
And that's the other thing too. Like if they had, now these guys are flying without a net. There's no editor unless they want there to be an editor, and that would mean they're paying the guy. So now you have to have an editor that will stand up to you and speak truth to power. And none of these guys had that kind of shit. They're just doing their thing, because there is a way to set this up with the entrepreneurial aspects that they have with all the Rumbleware bullshit in the back. At least make a dude look cool doing some shit with your fucking Rumble shirt. You know, like if you're going to sell it, because that's what it is. This is a catalog to sell shirts and shit, because the comic is nothing. Then you know, highlight some shit. Make a commercial.
This is another one of those, like, how do you show this power? This is the guy who can remodel the club as he walks through and waves his hands, and you're starting to see, like, just the hint of it, because he's going to disappear behind this sudden brick wall that appears whenever they come around the corner after him. That's your little indicator of, like, the superpower that he's initiating there to create a false plane there behind him. A lot of cool ideas, you know. It's just not, like I say, I can't follow the narrative.
No. Like, I'd never heard of Todd Johnson. I'm assuming that it's a friend of Larry Stroman's, and they're like, if Jim Lee can bring his high school chum, right, Brandon Choi, into the mixture, like, I'm gonna bring my homeboy into the mixture.
I wonder about that a lot, because like all of this stuff, if you look in the Indicia, it's both their names.
Yeah.
And it makes me think, like, Stroman has a big long career. Like, we know he can draw. What is this guy? Like, what does he get tied to? I bought this book 100% for Larry Stroman. I'm talking about it now 100% because of Larry Stroman's drawings. And I just wonder, like, how that split works and how much equity, you know.
Comics is a lonely biz, man. And to bring your homie along and, like, make a comic and to, like, enjoy that time, that could be worth 50% to Larry Stroman, you know?
Yeah. And whenever you're cutting up a big paycheck, that's all right. But years later, if you want to reprint this or revisit it or reshape it or anything, it might make it a little bit more complicated.
That's true.
Love this kind of like vertical page layouts, which again, like, it's all visual spectacle for me in terms of what I'm responding to. But even the color palette feels a little bit different. You're getting some of these tertiary oranges and greens and purples.
It's true.
Something a little different than your standard, like a Wildcats, like a Jim Lee primary colors.
And this spread, to me, is a Joe Chiodo spread, because he wasn't afraid. He was the only dude in that era that wasn't afraid to use some pinks, because it was such a macho butch time. Right. Like, Joe Chiodo would use these kind of colors, this kind of green, you know, and you would have like the whole kind of Easter egg palette across the pages. Like, I'm not the best, but I could identify Chiodo. I could identify Ruben Rude. And I know when Steve Olive is the guy, like, actually, like, working on the page.
There's those pinks you're talking about, Ed.
Yeah, man.
Turn the page as you, good timing on that.
Just the way he would build figures, so oddball.
This is another one of those pretty fun early digital color effects, right? It's like Predator, and I feel like Predator's referenced in one of these, like in an interview or something, in terms of this effect. But it is that early digital coloring. Like, what can you do with this? How can you show the invisible character effect with what we've got now in terms of technology? It's such a good setup, too, in terms of the gun and all the directional devices going after this, like, the big character that we've seen established. But we've got one more hero coming in, so it's not as simple as I finally got the drop on you.
Or villain.
Yeah, right. Yeah, not positive who's who. And it's funny because I do think it relates to the entrepreneurial stuff. Like, you almost have these superheroes moving in on, like, organized crime in this region, but it just doesn't quite... Again, I can't tell you who's involved with who, which is a shame, because it does make me think, like, you've got an ensemble cast built here. If I could just follow exactly who's trying to do what, I'd be interested. I'd be in.
Yeah, it's so not about that. Like, and I'm looking at some of the stuff on the back inside cover here. Like coming up with that tribe logo. Like, it works on a shirt. That's what these dudes are in it for. You got to have a 22-page comic ahead to just have something to sell to people.
Yeah, again, you can see these kinds of powers, right? This is a guy who's like wiping people's minds and stuff by staring through their eyes. Second time we've seen that power used, but not sure that's a good guy.
Going through this whole issue, one of the things that came to mind that it called me crazy, but I just never really associated Walt Simonson with him that much. But
yeah, there's some there.
There's a lot of Simonson that I saw like in the artwork in here, and then retroactively, like looking at the X Factors, it's like no brainer. Absolutely, I just didn't have that language in mind, when I was 8 or whatever.
Mark Texeira, whenever he's coming to Image with Union.
Yeah, these guys are they're the same level. You hate to say B-lister, but yeah. Like you have your McFarlane, Lee Liefeld, and then you had like the next dudes who had interesting visuals that weren't that first round of
Image
Image
those
dudes.
guys so much. And it was probably because at some point you've looked at the Image guys a bunch, and now it's like I want to see these other drawing techniques and influences. And you know who these two have in common is Neil Adams. Like both of these two spent some time in Continuity Studios.
It's true. Now this is what it's all about, dude. Fucking cards already. Like that's the world we live in. Where like a 22-page comic yields a whole card set, and it's so fucked up that the ad is even wrong. 8 cards per pack, 36 cards per box. No, 36 packs per box. Right. 12 boxes per case. So they're like trying to press you to buy a fucking case.
How many people are buying cases of these things?
Holy shit, collect all 90 cards to get the whole story. So it's that Defiant Comics bullshit.
I looked up a Tribe hat on eBay this week. I didn't find one, but I was looking for one. These are fun. They have these thanks notes in the back of, I think, all of these issues. And very quickly, I'm just going to show... I think this is a complete run of all the Tribe comics published. So issue 1, we've all seen it everywhere. After Image, and I don't know if it was a delay between issue 1 and 2 is how they break out away from Image, but for whatever reason, they're cut loose and they head to Axis Comics. I think this one is Axis.
Yeah, like, and if you look in here, like,
you can see the logo on the back here.
Their business is called Axis.
Okay, that makes sense.
Like it might be the shirt shit back here. But the word Axis is used in Tribe 1 in certain places.
You can see a little difference in terms, I think, of color and line work. Still good drawing in this one. Very fine lines, though, and the fine lines, sometimes I think they have trouble with like overprinting of colors and things like that. But it still mostly works for me. A little bit dark on some of the colors, which is probably the mark of not having a seasoned color separator, right? This was one of those iconic images for me in this series, and it's probably just because it illustrates how much of a nerd I was at this time. All right, so the reason that I wanted to pull this one out is whenever you're going through, like, who are we going to thank here? Professional assists, Daniel Clowes. That's an interesting name to see back there. I wish we would have had that, if I'd have been aware of that and asked Clowes when we interviewed him, like, what's the connection there? You know, if it's guys just talking shop at conventions or something like that. And issue 3, again, kind of playing out this Axis thing. And what I would note on this one, I think it's different coloring, by the way, for every single issue.
Yeah. Because it's all coming out of their pocket. So it's like try to get the best work that you can at the cheapest rates.
You get some money shots of our main superheroine here delivering some flying kicks.
She makes me think of like, do you remember Marsha Warfield from Night Court? She was like one of the bailiffs. Like there was Bull, vaguely, the bald guy, and then Marsha Warfield. She had a talk show at the time also.
Larry Stroman drawing a beefed up dragon. If you'd have told me that was Mark Texeira layouts on that drawing, I would have believed you.
There's Texeira elements to what Stroman has been doing.
I love his line work and stuff. He was not copying anybody else. And now the reason that I point this out, this is what Axis is publishing. Hero Illustrated did like an Axis ashcan kind of zine that would preview these things. Javier Salteres from Ghost World is what I would have known. Or Ghost Rider is what I knew him from at the time. But you can see kind of the books that they were publishing. So I don't know if all of these actually came out or not, but at least I think Beasties, at least I have a copy of that one.
Yeah, because it's on the number 2.
Yeah, I would get this one confused with Black Ball, which I think is where Trencher went to Black Ball, which was the same deal where it's like these Image comics would shake loose and what are you going to do with it? And then finally, this is the last issue that I have. This is a 0, but this is marked as a volume 2, and it's 1996. So this chronologically would have been the last one to come out. He's got an inker here. Again, different colorist. And now we're not even on the glossy paper stock anymore. And I think you can see the coloring. 96, a couple years into the future, and it's almost like the coloring has regressed.
Right.
Also, it looks like Stroman is inking with some much heavier tool. I don't know if that's maybe a big marker or something like that, but evolution over time. So, yeah, Tribe, really interesting comics.
Yes, sir, man.
I wish we had more Larry Stroman comics.
Jim, you better nail it with the thumbnail, if you know what I'm saying, man. There's only one thumbnail.
What can I do for a thumbnail that would stand out here? I'll do my best on this.
Good to go?
I am.
Kayfabers, like, follow, subscribe to the YouTube channel, hit the bell. We'll notify you when new vids are available. Tell the people what's out there, man.
Hulk Grand Design Monster Madness is in comic shops now in comic book form. In early 2023, the Treasury Edition collection of Hulk Grand Design will be out. Big oversized book, 40 extra pages, fluorescent green on the cover. The only way you can miss it is if you don't pre-order it now at your local comic shop. Street Angel Deadliest Girl Alive is back in print from Image Comics. 8 complete full-color stories in this one. And some of my best comics to date. So pick that one up in time for Christmas for the Action Comics fan in your life. And join me on patreon.com/JimRugg, where you can see a lot more of my comics and art.
The comics that I have on the stands right now is Red Room, The Antisocial Network, and Red Room Trigger Warnings trade paperback. Murder on the Dark Web for Fun and Profit is the name of the game in Red Room Comics. Each book contains 4 complete stories with a bunch of additional material in the back of each. And I'm serializing new comics on my Patreon, patreon.com/edpiscor. So all this is up there, plus the new stuff. $3 gets you the archive. And I will be at the Tokyo Comic-Con at the end of November, sharing a table with Uncle Jeff Darrow. I'm bringing a blank sketchbook, and I'm going to ask him to help me solve all the drawing challenges that I've had my entire life.
That's fantastic.
Can't wait for that. What else do we have out there, Jimmy?
Subscribe to the Cartoonist Kayfabe newsletter at the links below this video. You can also find Cartoonist Kayfabe t-shirts, merchandise, mugs, fanny packs, whatever you might want this upcoming holiday season at our spread shop in the links below this video.
It's another great way to support the Cartoonist Kayfabe channel. Give them those marching orders, Jimmy. We'll be on our way.
Read more comics.
I'd like to shoot interview Larry Stroman. You know what, man?
I was following for a while. He was active on Facebook, and he might still be. I haven't seen anything for a while.
I can get him there. There are there's the YouTube channel called Comic Book Historians or something like that, and they've been calling their interviews shoot interviews lately.
Really?
Like they've been posting these old interviews and calling them shoot interviews. But it's funny because they're illustrating that they don't know what a shoot interview is, because it would be John Romita Sr. And it's like, that would be a work interview, because that dude ain't never shooting straight. And it made me think if we ever sat down and actually talk with Jim Lee, which I would never chase, but if it happened, cool. It would be the one that we call a work interview. All the rest would be shoot interviews, but his would be called a work interview. If we interviewed John Romita Sr., it would be a work interview. Anybody who got health insurance from the fucking company their whole lives, they're not shooting.
That's funny. Yeah,
but the shit comes up and it says John Buscema shoot interview, and I'm like, you guys, you don't even know what a shoot is, man. I'm gonna follow your lead on this one, James.
Yeah, this is gonna be, some elephants in the room on this one.
Yeah,
that we'll have to address or ignore. I don't know. Hit it, man. Hello and welcome to Cartoonist Kayfabe. My name is Jim Rugg.
I'm Ed Piscor.
Before we dive into our first venture into the Ultraverse, a reminder that we are working Cartoonist, and Ed will be on the road in Japan for Tokyo Comic-Con at the end of November. Be sure and look him up there. That should be an amazing show. Tabling with Uncle Jeff Darrow. So looking forward to hearing all about that one. And we are working Cartoonist. So the best way to support Cartoonist Kayfabe is to pick up our books. Ed Piscor's Red Room, The Antisocial Network, and Red Room Trigger Warnings are both out as of this time. These are completely self-contained, 4 stories plus a lot of cool back matter. You can read them in any order. So if you haven't tried Red Room yet, grab whichever volume you come in contact with first. Street Angel, Deadliest Girl Alive is back in print from Image Comics. 8 complete full-color stories. Pick that one up in time for Christmas. And Hulk Grand Design Monster Madness, my latest comics. The comic books are available now in comic shops, and the oversized Treasury Edition will be out in early 2023. Let your comic shop know you want a copy of that now so that you don't miss out on a copy of this. So we are here to look at Ultraverse Prime. I'm going to say by Norm Brayfogle. A little disclaimer right from the beginning as you look at the writers' credits here, Len Straczewski and Gerard Jones. A little troubling past there with Gerard Jones, currently in prison for child pornography, I believe. So
8 is the new 18@gmail.com, I believe, was the email address he had when he got sucked up. And that's no alleged. Like, the dude's in prison. And it starts off with, like, I know what you are. I know who you are, what you are. And then there's, like, this perv talk. I know what you did with those kids. It's real dark. Light of, like...
With that context, it is weird to read this comic or to revisit this comic.
Totally.
I would say the best way to look at this video is try to separate your knowledge of that.
Celebrate Norm Brayfogle.
That's exactly right. And this is at the height of the speculator market. Malibu has tasted success with Image Comics in the previous, I don't know, year or two. Image breaks off on their own, and now Malibu is sensing like, we can sell some comics. Let's create a universe, and that is the Ultraverse. So the big name for me, the reason that I was interested in this at all is Norm Brayfogle, and I think you can see the power of his art here. He had a long run on Batman as a really cool artist, and whenever he shows up here, what we get is this incredible, like, physical kind of artist, right? And this is the stuff I was looking at bodybuilder magazines trying to figure out how to draw big, beefy superheroes. This was the biggest one of them.
Look at the volume, right? Like, really selling you on those shapes. Look at the striations, dude.
Striations is the right word.
It is nearly... It's like playing Megaton Man from More Serious or something.
I also, looking at this now, all I see is a freaking arrow pointed at his crotch.
Absolutely.
Whenever I look at this now, it's ridiculous.
It's not played for parody, but it's a parody Superman.
It really is. And
of the 90s.
The other thing to point out is, like, look at the coloring. Because Marvel's going to buy Malibu, and I think it was, they kind of framed it as to get their coloring department. Is that correct? Am I remembering that correctly?
Yeah.
So, you can kind of see, like, whenever these new companies would pop up, that was one of the things that they would try to do is, like, how do we... distinguish ourselves, how do we make our comics look good? And I think the coloring here is one of those pieces, although it's funny to see early computer coloring where you can see like the hard edges of them selecting this little deltoid here. It's almost like a hexagon on his shoulder that they're coloring in.
Yeah, like doing my own versions for parody, like figuring out how to do that, it doesn't look right. You're not doing 90s color if you don't have that kind of banding.
100%. Even an interesting use of like a screen tone, which I can't figure out. I bet you that's on the original art. This gradation screen tone. Right. I don't know that people were doing that, although it is perfectly like horizontal and vertical orientation. So who knows? Maybe they did figure that one out on their computer. But I found this reread of this issue to be pretty good as a first issue. We go right into the action, as we often say. We look at a lot of #1 issues. What makes an issue stand out or whatever. This is kind of compelling because as our gym teacher is fighting back, a lot of interesting stuff's happening. First, Prime hits him, and this is the captions of the gym teacher afterwards, kind of like somebody's interrogating him as to like, who is this superhero, trying to gather info on Prime. And he says it was like he didn't know his own strength. This little backhand sends him across the gym, and then when the gym teacher kicks him, because he's a martial artist, breaks his own ankle on the side of him.
And what's the deal, right? Like, it's still that...
A lot of questions.
Well, I'm saying it's still that pervy shit. That's what we're dealing with, is the pervy shit. And we have Prime breaking a dude's arm. Like, it's like Homeboy was writing this shit. It's like telling on himself or something. Like, it's really a fucking weird context that you just really can't shake.
This is kind of a fun moment, too. After he dispatches this guy, hurts him pretty bad, turns to the girls that he's allegedly there to defend, and is like, I'm your protector and avenger, don't be afraid. And you can see, like, it's even framed that way. She's crotch level of, like, this giant Hulk that just busted this dude up badly.
This made me think of the end of that Bill Sienkiewicz, Frank Miller, Daredevil graphic novel, where the Kingpin... is trying to get his woman help with her catatonic state and her psychological damage and all that. And then when she comes to, like, he realized, like he's the problem. She scared the fuck of you, dude.
Yeah. Certainly get a sense of that. And now we have our gym teacher recovered a little bit, and he's being interrogated by some mysterious force.
It's so stereotypical, like Wesley Snipes, like New Jack City type.
Well, here's my criticism of this issue 1. There's a lot of exposition, and they don't always handle it in a great way. I feel like that scene up to this point, pretty well done, but now we've just got talking heads, and the next talking head to come in was a drug dealer playing up those stereotypes. I kind of like Prime smashing through there. There's something funny to me about, like, going into, I guess, a crack house, people sitting on the porch here.
He calls it a Mr. Universe.
Yeah.
Oh, but this is actually kind of cool. Like I thought the feds, like, got a helicopter to drop a bomb on us, and there's that great documentary about the MOVE organization in Philadelphia where that literally happened.
Yeah, right. Wonder what the timing was for that. Is that
early
around?
80s?
Okay, sometime before here, so could be referencing that. But man, Breyfogle, so good with this, like, supersized character. He always looks amazing, and you think, like, there's probably some shots that are referenced, but, like, some of this kind of stuff, I think it's just Breyfogle being really good at anatomy.
Yeah.
And going all out.
Here's
and these
another
guys
one shooting the nuts.
Yes. And some of the bullets do hit. Like, there's stuff that oozes out of him. So again, building this character, right? A little bit of mystery as to, like, what's going on. But no real answers. It doesn't stop him.
And but you see that the damage is lasting. So paced reasonably well throughout the issue, where we get to see our guy acting hardcore. He's tough as fuck. Like, he ain't the Boy Scout Superman. He's way more hardcore. But then we're building in kryptonite at the end of the issue.
Yes. Bends the gun barrel around this guy, basically ties him up with his gun. That's a pretty fun, his flamethrower. Tying him up with that as he bends the barrel around him and stuff. That's kind of fun, a little bit of an update. And whenever he destroys the house, he says he just spins and the whole house comes down. They literally draw, like, the little tornado there of Tasmanian Devil style. And our drug dealer did manage to catch some of that ooze off of this guy whenever he was oozing from some of the bullet holes.
It's in a crack vial.
Yeah. So he's like, "Oh, I'll sell it for $5,000." And they're like, "All right." And he's like, "Oh, you got money to burn. Maybe it's $10,000." And then they are like, "You know what? We're just gonna take it." And they lock him in there and electrocute him and take the blood vial themselves. So again, we get a little bit of a glimpse that whoever it is behind the scenes, it's kind of a devious organization at the very least.
Yeah, it's that same Kingpin guy from our Black Lightning comic.
Yeah, complete with the balding comb over there. And
Look
of course,
at these
you
comics,
load this
man.
stuff up with your other books because it is a universe. So we got a lot of stuff.
Try
launching.
reading that. What's that say?
Dave Gibbons on the art for that ad.
Yeah, get him on the cover.
So more of this exposition. So at this point, we've gotten about 4 or 5 pages of these talking heads, and it's just not, that's not ideal.
On the going to inside cover again. Like, do we have in the indicia anywhere? Because, like, Harris Miller helped these guys out too. He helped the Image dudes form their deal. I thought I saw Harris's name in here. It might be at the end.
Yeah, it could be.
And it was in the Edge comic as well. So he helped form the Ultraverse set of characters with all those creators. He helped set up Bravora. He's like the secret...
Doing a lot of work at Malibu.
Yeah, and he's behind the scenes on all that shit.
Paul Mounts is your colorist. Paul Mounts, I believe, colored the X-Men trading cards. The Jim Lee X-Men cards.
Yeah, all the trading, like the Marvel Universe joints and stuff.
So again, continuing on, and these are almost ads for Ultraverse, this exposition, because first we have some hard case stuff, caught almost like paparazzi or something following these heroes around. Then we have Prototype. Is Prototype dead? Did he die in this test thing? They're about to go public with their stock margins.
Which is
it's still talking heads. Now we have our guy who was listening to the talking heads watching more talking heads on television.
Yeah, pretty bad. Gets messy when it comes to, like, all those other comics. Like, I think that Gerard Jones dude wrote a handful of things, man, set up the Ultraverse and stuff. But other writers, and they have participation and ownership and shit. So that gets very murky.
I've always heard that the reason these characters are just in oblivion is because the creators were set up for a piece, and I think that Marvel Disney just isn't going to participate in that. So
Even,
you don't get to see any of these characters anymore, even though they own them.
Even pre-Disney, yeah. So like the idea is like if Prime shows up, the Brayfogle estate will get something. It doesn't have to be drawn by Brayfogle.
Look at how muscular that leg is.
Yeah.
That's a tricep hamstring. So beefy.
And so tight.
So we're going to get another shot here. This is the third piece in issue 1 of Prime going out to Somalia now to help out in, I guess, just delivering food. You know, it says terrorists are blocking food supplies, so that's pretty noble. We can all agree on that. And Prime is out there to break through and allow this food from the UN to get delivered. And you see kind of a montage of him getting shot up and then retaliating, destroying these tanks. Always looking pretty cool. Looking kind of funny in that one. Not very heroic looking. Kind of scary.
It almost looks like Super Duper Man, like a mad parody.
I like the idea that he's scary looking, because in real life this would be the scariest thing you'd ever see.
We have Superman and he's American. Remember, like that whole shit. Like that would be the first thing that you need to know. Like, is he on our side?
It reminds me of stuff like Miracle Man, which they would have all had the benefit of knowing about at this point. Because yes, if you show up with this dude, just it's a weapon. This
gives you a good idea of like the era that we're in. Like the 1963 dudes are starting to look. It's just Mystery Incorporated, not even 1963. Wildcats 1 and the trilogy. So like the Jay Lee joint. Jack Kirby is over there at Image. Mike Grell does a comic called Shaman Steers. You know, one word.
With that papyrus font.
Yeah, I know, man. The Extreme Studios is branching out, so that's where we're at now. We're in the branch out phase. Like the original Image founding fathers, they put out their comics to great success. Now we're like, you know, in the death blow era.
Yeah, and it's funny you say death blow, because this is the death blow to the speculator bubble. I mean, it's Turok #1 and it's the return of Superman, which everybody points to as like that's when things start taking their nosedive.
I mean, just look at this abusive language, like order 3 or
They're
more.
All that way. It's such bullshit.
Yeah, when comics were cryptos.
Yeah,
man.
this is predatory like speculation practice.
But before that, it was like order 10 Youngblood ones and get 50 cents off an issue. Order 3 or more, like Jesus, of course, right? Everybody was participating, but also realized it. I don't know that anybody was ignorant. You know, the ignoramuses are like when Bill goes to that rich dude's house.
Yeah, right.
After he passes.
I was gonna say I'm the ignoramus. Like I probably bought everything up here.
Right, but you didn't buy 3. That's why you're not. That's why you're not the ignoramus. The guy that Bill went to go see had about 10 to 20 copies of every Valiant #1.
Yeah, that's rough. Hey, back to our Prime comic. So Prime did get a little beat up in this whole fighting the terrorists in Somalia, and you can see it. He doesn't look good in his expression. That hand's just melted off or something, leaving stuff behind. Reminds me almost of like Megaton Man. Some of the visuals.
Yeah, absolutely, man.
Crashes into this building and is just not doing good.
Yeah.
By the way, like this would have been the B list of Malibu's superhero universe.
But this was like this is the answer to the Image guys. Like they do the first round of Image stuff, and in the Youngbloods and shit, they're pimping Protectors comics, and so like this is probably more owned by the Malibu dudes, and they just did their best, but it's so generic and boring, and you don't even see these in the quarter bins because I don't think they ever generated that many copies.
Yeah, that's an interesting
Do you have one Protectors? I don't think I've ever seen a Protectors comic in the wild.
I have spin-offs. I don't know if I have Protectors, but like there'd be like Ferret. There were a handful of these things. One had a bullet hole gimmick that I think that's Ferret. It might be. I have one of them that I think's pretty funny, but yeah, you are right. Like they're the B list of Malibu superheroes.
Yeah, that S. Clark Hallbaker guy, I think, does some drawings for covers at least.
Yeah, covers, I think. I don't know if he does interiors, because I was following him.
Because that's his image that would be in the ads in the Image comics. And this is just like, it's a little boy inside a man.
Yeah, this is where we start naked. To get something. And some cool Brayfogle stuff, like his Prime's face is melting off and you can just see a little bit of the kid inside's face. That's a good image. Very disturbing. This is horror movie stuff.
Yeah.
pushing to get out. Love that, you know, like as he's like reaching and making that membrane thinner and thinner until he finally emerges from it. And this is what we see. Charles Burns style, like skin shed on the floor behind him. And hard to tell that this is a kid, but
yeah.
we would learn that this is a kid. This is, I guess, middle school or high school, whatever age that inappropriate gym teacher was in the beginning, that is his age. That's how he knows that stuff's going on and why he was trying to protect those girls. And heck of a first issue. A lot of ground covered.
It's true. This
is the only Ultraverse, well, Rune would be the other one, that I brought myself to read.
Yeah.
The rest of it was just a little bit, I just could not.
The costume for Solitaire was pretty cool, but
I might have picked that up.
Was
Ernie
never...
Steiner, I think, might have drawn an issue or two of Solitaire.
Yeah, not the one that I have.
No, it was Dave Johnson? Not Dave
man,
Johnson.
I'd be surprised about that.
Yeah, not Dave Johnson.
It was very rough stuff. I got it, but...
Dinosaurs for Hire. How about that for an ad?
It almost looks like Dawn Simpson also, like that sort of thing.
I kind of like the inking on the like it's very severe inking.
You know what? Your copy is better than mine because the blue line shifted on my copy, or maybe it's the back cover. No, yeah, like the blue line shifted and it made it real hard to read. Raver.
I thought this was part of that Protectors kind of group, but I might be wrong, and it's just part of the generic superheroes Malibu was doing.
And it's written by Chekhov from Star Trek, and they're making the distinction that this is Chekhov's first color comic, because I guess he had a big career in the black and white.
That's ridiculous. This art looks cool. I don't remember ever seeing this comic.
That is pretty rad. Like, if you don't know, man, it's like, what Air Cell comic is this?
Yeah, totally. I thought it might have been John Bolton even, but
yeah.
Nobody that I'm familiar with. And there's your Ultraverse. They're putting their money behind to try to sell. And Heroes #1 to, again, give you an idea of when this is. And Heroes shows up right as the bubble bursts.
It does.
You know, if this is issue 1 and we see the remnants in there. But Norm Brayfogle, the star of this book.
Absolutely, man.
And it's cool. I think he does 12 issues of this thing. So love Brayfogle, and man, he's just peak with this stuff. Whenever I would look at like the best vein artist, Brayfogle would make my list all based on Prime.
Absolutely, man. But he actually refines his vein drawing on Bloodshot. Like, you know,
that's right. That's a good run too.
Prime's the pump for Brayfogle's vein drawing because some of the stuff in there, it's a little all over the place, but
yeah.
He gets it nailed down after doing 100 pages of this shit.
Speaking of all over, like, look at some of the coloring choices on.
Throughout this whole thing, there were weird blues showing up
Bizarre.
on dudes' faces.
It is good, though. You can see his face where it's like he's just creepy. It's a little bit too much. Like, that is not comforting. That's not Superman's classic 50s good looks.
He looks like Chain Gang in the jibs, man.
That's good.
Good to go?
Yeah.
Kayfabers, like, follow, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Hit the bell. We'll notify you when new vids are available. Jimmy, tell the people what you have out there, man.
Hulk Grand Design is in stores right now in comic book form. In early 2023, the oversized Treasury Edition will be out. Got to pre-order that now to make sure Marvel prints a copy for you. Street Angel, Deadly Scroll Alive, back in print from Image Comics, is available now everywhere. 8 complete full-color stories, and you can join me on patreon.com/JimRugg, where you can see a lot more of my comics and art.
Red Room, Trigger Warnings, Red Room, The Antisocial Network, trade paperbacks in stores now. Murder on the Dark Web for Fun and Profit is the name of the game in the Red Room comics. Each book contains 4 complete stories, along with 70-plus pages of additional material. I'm serializing new Red Room comics at my Patreon, and it includes all of these comics in the archives. It's more than 300 pages for $3 per month. And hit up my link tree in the description below this video for all of those destinations. And I will be at Tokyo Comic Con 2022 at the end of November. Jeff Darrow and I are sharing a table out there, and can't wait to meet you if you are in that region at that time. Jimmy, what else do we have out there, man?
Subscribe to the Cartoonist Kayfabe e-newsletter at the links below this video. You can also find Cartoonist Kayfabe t-shirts, merchandise, mugs, and a lot more at our spread shop in the links below this video.
It's another great way to support the Cartoonist Kayfabe channel. Give them those marching orders, and we'll be on our way.
Read more comics.
Manifest Panda, thanks so much for the super chat. Can't give away most 90s books, he says. So much good stuff like Invisibles, Cerebus, but those order minimums, super predatory. Ever talked to Tom Spurgeon from Comics Reporter before he died? Yes, a million times. Never for the channel. If that's the question, we don't have him on record.
No,
but he's a bud. He was a bud of ours, man.
He was a bud of anybody that loves comics.
Knew him super well, and it's a tragedy that he passed. Huge bummer.
Yeah, nobody's replacing Tom Spurgeon, that's for sure. That dude was, what do they say, a one of one.
Yeah.
And could talk any comics you wanted to talk. From image to manga. I don't know if that's the full spectrum of comics or not, now that I think of it. But, yeah, enjoyed Tom Spurgeon.
Editor at Comics Journal during some key years, probably during that speculator boom. I'm not seeing this. Okay, there it is. Good to go?
Hit it. Hello and welcome to Cartoonist Kayfabe. My name is Jim Rugg.
I'm Ed Piscor.
Man, is this a fun episode today, Ed, looking at Buchi Terasawa's Cobra #1. Before we open that one up, speaking of manga, you can find Ed at the end of November in Tokyo at the Tokyo Comic-Con, tabling with Jeff Darrow the last weekend in November, so be sure and stop by there. That should be an amazing comics event. Very jealous of that, but look forward to coverage on the channel, Ed, when you get back.
I want you there, man.
This channel is brought to you by the comics that we make. Ed Piscor's Red Room, the Antisocial Network, and Red Room Trigger Warnings are both out and available now. These collect 4 complete short stories in the Red Room universe. They are self-contained and can be read in any order, so whichever volume you encounter first is the perfect place to start. My latest comics, Hulk Grand Design Monster Madness. The comic books are out and available now, retelling the 60-year history of the Incredible Hulk. The collected oversized Treasury Edition will be in stores in early 2023. If you want a copy of that, make sure and let your store know to pre-order one so Marvel knows how many to print. Street Angel Deadliest Girl Alive, back in print from Image Comics. 8 complete full-color stories of the homeless ninja on a skateboarder. Perfect for this upcoming Christmas season. But we are here to talk some early manga imprints.
Yes.
1990 for Cobra, English adaptation by Marv Wolfman. There's popular manga about, popular anime about Cobra out there. And this is a doozy.
Yeah.
Viz Comics brings this out, and I don't know if you can see it on screen or not, but this is kind of a deluxe edition. It's a square bound, I don't know if that's 48 or 64 pages, but like a matte finish. Like, just feeling this, it feels different than your average comics. I feel like the design of the cover is pretty sharp for a 1990 edition. And they ran six issues of this, 6 or 12 issues of this came out. Reads great. I had a blast with this, reading this week.
Yeah, the beauty of it, in terms of the translation, is that you got a seasoned comics writer to add some spit polish to the writing. You know, like Marv Wolfman probably don't know Japanese. You get the rough translation,
right,
and then you massage it and you turn it into something that we know and dig. Some context for Cobra, 16 tankobon out there from 78 to 1984 or something like that. In the 50 million range for its popularity. So it is no slouch of a comic. Had a great Sega CD game called, it was, in America it's called The Space Adventure, but it's unmistakably Cobra because it's this. And like I said, it started in 78 and it has that aesthetic. It's an evolution of Tezuka in a lot of ways. But this dude is bringing some other... he's bringing Barbarella into the mix. He's bringing Star Wars into the mix. Like, all that culture stuff that's out there in the culture. Like, this dude's bringing into the story.
And this feels like a second generation of Viz, the publisher, because we've looked at some stuff like their first year, they bring out Mai, Psychic Girl, Kamui, Area 88, and Xenon, I believe, are their first 4 series. And they're like regular comic books, except they're bi-weekly, but they're kind of like a regular standard comic book saddle stitch. These are higher production values, a little bit thicker, a monthly schedule. So Viz is continuing to evolve in terms of like trying to figure out this market and the direct market and all of that. I actually brought along another Viz comic of his. I think these are the 2 that they publish in this format by Terasawa. Midnight Eye #1, another one of his characters, and this one, early computer coloring. So that's kind of the interesting wrinkle on this. And it's a PI. Mm-hmm. So, you see him doing genre is what you see here. The sci-fi
space
pirate stuff, the Private Eye. Very sexy, both of these, and the presentation of both of these.
Yeah, and just for more context, Cobra is his first series, and I don't even think he did one-shots and shit before. Like, I think he did a Cobra story, and then it manifests into something bigger that he was able to kind of build on top of.
And his arm gun here, Psycho Gun.
Yeah.
Well, let's dive into this, because it's pretty fun comics.
And, that aesthetic of, like, space battleship Yamamoto or whatever, like, it's absolutely that era of aesthetic in terms of manga.
I was looking at this and thinking aesthetically. So if you cover up his Cobra's face, I mean, this could be something Wildstorm is publishing. Very heroic poses, a lot of rendering on, like, almost a metallic surface on this sidekick of his, this tattoo and sexy woman in the background. It's the cartoony face to me that brings up, you mentioned Tezuka's lineage, but overall, like, I can see why Viz might look around and say this could work in 1990.
Yeah, it's real fascinating. Like as we continue with this channel, like, I'm thinking, fuck, I have connections at Viz. Like, we need to start getting some of that stuff on the record, some of those kinds of interviews and stuff. Whether the audience supports it or not, it's literally irrelevant because it's important for the history.
Comics publisher in America.
Absolutely, man. Because the choices that they made, and when I go out there is a woman, Sheena Ishimori, I think is her name, and she's a translator. Like, she's translated so much of this stuff. She is very well schooled in, like, Viz's history here in America. Like, I'm gonna pull her coat and see if I could get her on the record, because it's so calculated, and it required years of just establishing things in this way, in the way that Americans understood and can absorb things, but it's grown into what it is now. We're like, I'm going to be able to read all of Fist of the North Star in a professional translation. I really think that's going to happen. That company is doing really well. I don't think they're not going to... Right. I don't think they've stopped and canceled books in the past, however long. Like, so I'm going to get to read that. That's the Viz that we have now.
Yeah, absolutely. Story-wise, this guy wakes up and he's kind of living a mundane lifestyle, has this robot assistant, a little bit of a sci-fi setting here, and it's the weekend. His robot woke him up early, which he doesn't appreciate on a Sunday when he could sleep in.
But it's check time.
He's fantasizing about getting a sexy girl robot instead of this guy, but doesn't have the money for that. What he does have the money for is this TM company that's advertising on one of his video monitors. And what do? Like, kind of fantasy movies, customized to you, where you get to be the star of that. So he's going to go check that out because what else is he doing on a Sunday?
It's cheap.
It is. And that's a wild drawing to me. Reminds me of that 2001 Jack Kirby story where you get to be like virtual reality space hero. So pretty cool so far. And as he enters, like, look at the designs on, like, the, I guess, girl robots, the door girls, as he's walking in. Like, that already, I think, tips you off to we're gonna get to see some cool stuff in this in this comic.
Yeah, for sure.
So a lot of, like, this is a sexy series. I feel like sex is used a lot throughout this series and that sexiness quality. So he engages with, like, kind of a concierge is going to push him. What do you want to see? What do you want in your dream movie?
Yeah.
Your fantasy movie.
And you bring up the sex stuff. This was serialized in Shonen Jump, the boys comic.
Oh, interesting.
We looked at an issue of Shonen Jump for like '84, and there was a episode of Cobra in there where, like, people were flying around on these, like, rocket propelled crucifixes. A lot of weird imagery in that book, man.
Wow, what you can get away with in a kid's comic there, right?
I'm telling you.
This is basically Vampirilla costume, by the way, our host.
Yeah,
with
like
a blonde wig on.
Yeah, I mean, talk about the Barbarella stuff. It's also, like, so fetishized. Mm-hmm. Like he's tracing a photo, probably.
I love all of this stuff, like the little oval light patterns behind it, and whatever this booth is of, like, discs or eyes or cameras or something. Just looks super cool to me. So here he goes. Drug him up with some gas, I believe, and now he's going to sleep. Fun effect. Looks like it could be something out of like Journey to the Moon or something, like a 1930s special effect.
Starts cue the Smashing Pumpkins music.
Exactly. And wake up in this fantasy.
He's Cobra.
And his sidekick, what's it? Lady, his partner, who is this like masked robot sidekick that, again, weird for a kid's comic, I think. Strange tangent of their legs like just barely touching. But she looks cool. She's out there killing dragons for him to eat, and he's a lone wolf pirate.
And he doesn't look like this guy.
No, he doesn't. Nah, this is your maybe your idealized version, right? The hunky romance cover model there.
But we do find that he surgeryed up his face.
Look how cool these things are too. Is we're going through like recap the whole what he's experiencing in this movie. It looks great.
Look at that shit, dude. Fucking robot horse. Come on now.
Ed, do you think these are like the painted intro to the piece? I know this is a lot of pages in, but you know, like there's wash and stuff that I don't usually associate with manga.
Yeah, that's the thing. You only associate it with like the first couple pages of like something
like
new.
4 pages or 6,
So,
not 15.
It's true, and we haven't seen them before, so I can't speak to that. But I do think that we have one complete episode, and I'll tell you where I think it ends.
Okay.
And then we have just a piece of like the next episode.
And he's basically, there's like a pirate guild, and he is outside of that pirate guild. So this is one of the bad guys that he lets live.
Yeah, very much Tezuka influenced kind of imagery with the bad guy.
And those playing at home, take note of this bird, because we're going to see that again. But movie ends, and whenever he comes out of the movie, like he mentions, you know, how great it was. But she's like, wait, there shouldn't have been pirates in your movie.
Yeah, you're supposed
something's
to be
wrong here.
Yeah, you're supposed to be playing around with some like mermaids or something. There ain't supposed to be this or that. Like, what are you talking about? Something's glitched up. But he's got space pirates on the mind now.
So he's driving home. Love these shots too. Like, very entertaining on the parts that I don't know that they're supposed to be anything too special.
This is the interesting stuff, knowing what was probably there and the heavy lifting that the letterer had to do because of that obligation that they felt that like we don't need to be seeing the Japanese lettering and to this day, like when we were doing Akira episodes and with Jeff Darrow and Frank Whiteley, and we're oscillating back and forth between Dark Horse and the Kodansha box set, there were people popping up in the comments like, I don't want to look at those Japanese sound effects. Get that shit the fuck out of here.
Yeah.
I want to... Not being able to read Screech messes with my experience.
So whenever he goes down to check on the guy that he almost wrecks as he's like daydreaming driving along, we see a familiar face, and it is our space pirate.
Yeah.
So now what is happening? We've got characters crossing over from his fantasy movie into real life. Doesn't add up. And somehow, he kills the pirate. Almost like he had a gun where that hand was.
Right. Uh-oh.
And he really kills him, man. Hole burnt right through the middle of him.
That'll do it.
And we do see there's a gun under his hand, and now he's freaking out, like, what is going on? Has no idea, like, is he still in the movie?
As a boy, like, as a creative boy, making your own characters and stuff like that, who hasn't made a character with a gun arm?
Absolutely.
You know what I'm saying? Like, of course. Like, if you had to come up with, like, stereotypes of some mythical shonen jump comic, there would have to be somebody with a gun arm at some point. And this is the deal.
Finds this secret chamber here whenever he twists his face on the wall, that he's starting to now remember some stuff.
Oh, he's got that stogie in, too, to let you know that he's a pirate.
Mm-hmm. And before they can get too deep into what's going on, some people storm his apartment. Get the classic manga action going on, a little shootout. Comes up pretty good. How about this for our another great pirate character showing up? That bird went and ratted him out. It's a stool pigeon. Look at that skull in the spacesuit.
Yeah.
How good is that?
And she got that missing eye, which is uncanny.
Love it all. I am in love with this spread. Look, you still have this kind of weird gray reprints.
Yeah, there's a wash to it, for sure. Now we're getting into Rain Ness territory, man. Straight damn log.
Man, that's so true.
Right?
Perfect. Yeah, makes me wonder if if Rain Ness is a fan of this, of some twisted mangas. But it's Lady is back. She's been hiding out inside of his robot butler this whole time. It's so ridiculous.
Yeah, dude. It does have the energy of being spontaneous in a way. It doesn't feel so planned.
No, it doesn't. And also, like, it's not wasting any time.
Right,
like,
right.
we're 30 pages in, and a lot has happened, and a lot of action has happened. A bunch of cool character designs have crossed our eyes.
And it's all readable, too. It's like the exposition is chill.
How about this for an effect? That's got to be white painted on top of that wash.
Yeah, I think so.
There's a lot of that kind of stuff where it's almost like manga, you know, how you making all these pages in a short deadline, but still make them look interesting. And so, like, you see just these little, I don't know, decorative almost backgrounds, but it's a way to keep everything looking good and moving forward if you're the guy creating it.
It's making me think that Zipatone screens out there, I don't know that they really used them in the 70s. I'm gonna keep my eyes peeled, but I don't think I recall seeing anything with zips.
Well, here we go. Let's go from the washes, and now we are going to our straight line art.
Yeah.
So that confuses me a lot because I've never seen an intro.
Okay, and this is the last page, by the way. Like, this is the last page of this first chunk.
Uh-huh.
It's the size of a one-shot.
Okay.
That would be
About 30 pages worth there.
Yeah. And then I think we're getting just a piece of the next episode.
I wonder even, let's see, 33 pages. If somewhere in here is where that first one ends, and then, yeah, I don't know where it would be, but somewhere where they get a drop on him, and then maybe you get a couple of pages of this in the next chapter.
I think the first thing, like,
it does look like an end of a chapter.
Yeah, and I think that, like, as a one-shot, you know, we looked at it in the Akira Toriyama Manga Theater. Like, some of those things are 60 pages, and it's an attempt, you know, this is just thrown in when a guy misses deadline or whatever, and the audience is gambling. You know, the audience is choosing thumbs up, thumbs down. This thing really hit because this artwork feels evolved.
Mm-hmm.
It feels stronger. The ink is way tighter. You know, the first piece is doujinshi, man.
That's interesting. Wonder how much of that happens where, like, the guy kind of makes his own comic and then gets to talk to an editor, and it's like, here are completed pages. I
mean, you know, once we get off this stream and everything, we're going to debrief that shoot interview.
How much, you know, like, this feels so in line with stuff like Star Wars. Like, I can see why Viz would think bring this over here.
Totally.
But also, like, it would have been contemporary of those kinds of things.
Yeah, in the 70s, absolutely. Like, that's the inspiration.
And
you know,
this feels much more like Tezuka that you mentioned early on.
But it's literally the Walrus Man, Dr. Evazone, or whatever his name is, from like the Cantina scene. Like, I have the death sentence on 7 systems, whatever the fuck. Like, that's what that scene is.
Good storytelling here is one of these guys charges our hero, who just trips him, falls on his own I don't know if that's a knife or a sword kind of in between, but kills him. You know, it's like sticking through his chest. And now, when his buddies decide that's it, we're gonna get our revenge.
Here comes Barbarella.
Yes, the bounty hunter that shows up and takes out these guys. She's excited to collect that bounty. How cool! Even the creature that she rides on
feels like Mobius. Even
that's the thing with this series is, like, there aren't dull pages.
No,
the guy's coming up with all kinds of fun stuff. This is weird though. Gotta junk that bike, but he's gonna carry it around.
Listen, man, working on the lats.
And so his memory, you know, what we've learned in this issue is he was Cobra. It just got to be too much for him. Changes his face, fakes his own death, but now he's back.
Yeah.
He was bored with that mundane life after a couple of years, and he comes and visits his own tombstone, and he's followed by our bounty hunter.
Yeah, and she's putting two and two together. Are we at that part, like, where she dispatched some guys?
Yeah, she's dispatched them. They talk shop a little, and now she trails him here, and she's like, Cobra died here 3 years ago.
Yeah, because what happens when they dispatch the guys, she realizes there's like an extra bullet wound in one of the bad guys, and she has no idea. She knows she only shot once, and then she putting two together. There's only one other guy who could be that quick a shot, and it's got to be Cobra. See, that's how these shonen comics work, And Frederick Schott in the manga book, he has a whole chapter where he talks about like it could be anything, cooking, golf, whatever. But like those comics, the stuff that those kids respond to is like somebody who is the best at what they don't want second best. They're not looking for hero's journey at that level of like, you know, somebody who doesn't overcome the adversity. You got to be the badass.
Yeah, I have to bite my tongue for stories I'm working on that follow that. But yes, yeah, I love that stuff. I think that's such a cool piece of manga and of a lot of this manga that we read here. But here's her part where she's putting that together, you know, and she figures out like, you know, maybe you had your face changed. And just as she's about to maybe figure out like this guy could be worth a lot with a bullet in him as a bounty hunter, we get another cool looking character that shows up. These bad guys are tracking her. And now here we go. Unlikely alliance, right? We're going to have to... can't have Cobra, can't let her die, right?
Yeah, and then you find out she's like Ikuza or whatever.
Yes. Rips off the back of her outfit to reveal her true identity as well. So you see the parallel storytelling too, where it's two characters that are slightly pretending to be something else.
Yeah. And then ad for Hirobi, I guess you call it, man, with Len Wein doing the adaptation, which is so funny because you can never have Len and you can't have Marv Wolfman without Len Wein being somewhere close, and vice versa. So those guys are cashing some Viz checks. Look at that badass motherfucker, dude.
I love that Viz would do this too in all the back of their books, is you get your bio of the artist that we're looking at. How else are we going to learn about this guy?
Hip us to these guys, man. Absolutely. Now, the legacy of this cartoon, the anime, giant influence on Peter Chung.
Right.
Certainly with Aeon Flux in specific. And when you watch that show, the directors of that show, they push past the manga in terms of foreshortening and stuff. Like, it's definitely the director's hand, and you see it. You see these crazy distortions and things that you could just tell that Peter Chung would like completely latch on to. So it's not really the manga so much as the anime. But
this was a great issue.
Oh, so fun.
Highly recommend to anybody unfamiliar with it to check it out. And, you know, for that matter, I'm asking everybody watching this video who likes it, pump up these numbers, share this video, because I'd like to cover Midnight Eye #1. Let's look at some more of his work, and let us know that you're into this.
I like this track we're going down, man. Let's do some Crying Freemans.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Pull some numbers.
Let's do Hotel Harbor View, the bullet sequence.
I have that one pulled, so it won't be hard.
Good to go, Jim?
I am.
Kayfabers, like, follow, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Hit the bell. We'll notify you when new vids are available. Jimmy, tell the people what's out there.
Hulk Grand Design Monster Madness is in comic shops now. This is a retelling of the 60-year history of the Incredible Hulk. The collection will be in comic shops in early 2023 in a beautiful oversized Treasury edition, but you got to pre-order that one now to make sure Marvel prints a copy for you. Street Angel Deadly Squirrel Live from Image Comics, back in print after almost a year. 8 complete stories of the homeless ninja on a skateboard. You will want to read this if you haven't already, and you can join me on patreon.com/JimRugg, where you can see lots more of my comics and art.
Red Room Trigger Warnings, Red Room The Antisocial Network Trade Paperbacks, Murder on the Dark Web for Fun and Profit is the name of the game. Each of these volumes has 4 completely self-contained stories in each, plus about 70 pages of additional material, new artwork made exclusively for the books, things like that. And I'm serializing new Red Room comics on my Patreon. All of this material and the new stuff is up there. Every Tuesday I put up something extra, and $3 for the archive. So it's at this point less than a penny a page of comics. Hit up my link tree in the description below this video to get to those destinations. And I'm going to be at the Tokyo Comic Con in November, the very last weekend of November, sharing a table with Jeff Darrow. We've been comparing notes and things like that ahead of time, so can't wait to meet you. Looking forward to it. It's 3 years since they had a convention out there in Tokyo, and they are stoked to get the show on the road, man. So going to be fun. Jimmy, what else do we have out there, man?
Subscribe to the Cartoonist Kayfabe newsletter at the links below this video. You can also find Cartoonist Kayfabe t-shirts, merchandise, and other merchandise. You can also find t-shirts, hats, mugs, and other merchandise at our spread shop at the links below this video.
It's another great way to support the Cartoonist Kayfabe channel. Given those marching orders, Jimmy, we'll be on our way.
Read more manga.
And that's how we do it.
That's good.
Now, we got a lot of vids in the queue, dude. We got a lot of stuff, and I wanna put all that stuff out. Like, I wanna have a video out like every day where I'm part of the gimmick.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? But like after we recorded last week, I was counting the unlisteds. It was almost 40.
Okay.
You know what I mean? And of course, in 7 days, there goes a week. So like we're set up. Now I think you're going to do some solo shits here.
I don't know what I'm going to do.
I'm trying to do some like unique one-off shits out there and just archive it, add it, put it out, whatever the fuck. But there's some cool stuff going on. Victor Farrow, thanks for that super chat, man. That's how we do it. Put in a week's worth of work into one day. Did a shoot interview first thing in the morning. That's gonna be a ball. That's gonna be a blast. That's a Jimmy edit. I uploaded it to a thing. I'm gonna send it to you as soon as we split. But there it is, man. You know one comic that we have to do sooner than later, Jimmy?
What's that?
And it is the trailer, in Facebook Memories, like episode 1 of Cartoonist Kayfabe, November 5th. But we put out the trailer ahead of time. And in that trailer, like you're showing off that Wolverine comic with the Sienkiewicz inks over top of John Buscema.
Yes.
Like, why have we not done that one, dude?
Is it Wolverine 10?
It is Wolverine 10.
That is one of my 3 first comics.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Like, bring that comic next week. That's got to be one that we do.
That's a limp.
Exactly. The limp ones, the well-read shits, because you're going to be able to speak about that super, super articulately without even second thought. And that's the one too, man, where it's like the storytelling is all over the place and real crazy. It's like that 24-hour span. Ed, when are the colored pages you've been working on going to show up on Patreon? I'm serializing it beginning next week.
Wow.
Yeah, I just wrapped up today. Today wraps up a complete issue of the next round on the Patreon, the very first issue of the next miniseries, and then I'm going to serialize 4 weeks worth of this color piece, and then another issue. I'm doing these color backups.
That's pretty exciting.
Yeah. And then with these backups, that's going to be my focus for the next year or two. Those characters and exploring that world. Going to be super fun. So, guys, we're gonna power down. Jimmy and I have to debrief some of our stuff and tear stuff down. But thank you guys so much for showing up.
Thanks.